I found my daughter sleeping on the concrete under an overpass, and for a moment, my heart simply stopped beating. Her husband had sold their home and married his mistress years ago, leaving her with absolutely nothing. I took her in. The next day, I went to his luxury apartment building. When he opened the door, what I did next he will never forget. My name is Thaddeus Cole. I am 71 years old, and I spent 40 years inspecting the foundations of this city. I know which skyscrapers are built on granite and which ones are built on lies. If you have ever had to pick a loved one up from rock bottom because someone else pushed them there, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments which city you are listening from, because the story I am about to tell you is not just about revenge. It is about structural integrity, and my son-in-law was about to learn that when the foundation cracks, the whole house comes down. The call came at 3 in the morning. A social worker from the downtown outreach program found a contact card in a discarded purse. She told me they had found a woman fitting my daughter's description near the I-95 underpass. I did not ask about the weather. I did not ask if she was okay. I grabbed my keys and my flashlight and I drove. My hands gripped the steering wheel of my Ford truck so hard, my knuckles turned white against my dark skin. Nia. My Nia. The girl who graduated with honors. The girl who played cello. The girl who married Derek Sterling, the golden boy of real estate. I had not seen her in 2 years. Derek told me she had run off to Europe to find herself. He told me she was ashamed to call. I believed him. I was an old fool who wanted to believe his daughter was happy. I pulled up to the encampment. It smelled of wet cardboard, gasoline, and human misery. The social worker pointed to a small green tent tucked behind a concrete pillar. I walked over, my work boots crunching on broken glass. I shined the light. There was a bundle of rags in the corner. It moved. Nia, I whispered. My voice cracked. The figure jolted awake. She scrambled backward, pressing herself against the dirty concrete wall. She threw her hands up to cover her face. "I am leaving," she screamed. Her voice was raspy, broken. "I am leaving right now. Please do not call the police. I will move. Just give me 5 minutes." She did not recognize me. My own child thought I was a cop coming to evict her from a patch of dirt. "Nia, look at me. It is Daddy." She lowered her hands. The beam of my flashlight caught her face and I felt a physical blow to my gut that was harder than any punch I ever took in the army. Her cheekbone was purple. Her lip was split. She was so thin her eyes looked massive in her skull. "Daddy," she whispered. She did not hug me. She collapsed. She just fell forward into the dirt as if her strings had been cut. I scooped her up. She weighed nothing. She was lighter than she was in high school. I carried her to the truck, ignoring the stares of the other lost souls under the bridge. I put her in the passenger seat and blasted the heater. She was shivering so hard her teeth chattered. We drove in silence for 10 minutes before I could trust myself to speak without shouting. "Where is Derek?" I asked. She flinched at the name. "He is at the penthouse," she said. "With her." "With who?" "Chloe, the new wife." I almost drove off the road. "New wife?" "He made me sign papers, Daddy." She was staring out the window at the passing streetlights. "He told me they were for a tax shelter. He said if I signed the house over to his holding company, we would save $50,000 a year. He said it was for our future, for little Marcus." "Marcus, my grandson. Where is Marcus?" She started to cry then, a dry, heaving sob that sounded like it hurt. "He has him. He got a restraining order. He told the judge I was unstable. He used the videos." "What videos?" "The ones he took when he would lock me in the bathroom and turn off the lights until I screamed. He recorded me screaming, 'Daddy.' He showed the judge and said I was a danger to our son. He got the divorce ex parte. I did not even know we were divorced until the sheriff came to the door 3 months ago and gave me 10 minutes to pack." I felt a coldness spread through my chest. It was not anger. Anger is hot. Anger is messy. This was something else. This was the cold calculation of a man looking at a building that needs to be condemned. Derek Sterling had not just left her. He had systematically dismantled her. He had engineered her destruction with the same precision he used to draft his blueprints. "He sold the house," I asked. "It was already sold. To his shell company. He took the equity. He took the savings. He blocked my cards. He told everyone I was on drugs. Daddy, I have never touched drugs in my life. I was just hungry. I have been so hungry." I reached over and took her hand. Her fingers were ice cold and rough. "You are not going back there," I said. "You are coming home. And you are going to sleep for a week." "But Marcus," she sobbed. "He told me if I ever came near the building again, he would have me arrested. He knows the police chief. He knows everyone." "He does not know me," I said. "He thinks he knows me. He thinks I am just the old black man who fixes his deck and nods when he talks about the stock market. He forgot what I used to do for a living, Nia." I pulled into the driveway of my small brick house in the suburbs. It was not a mansion like Derek's, but the foundation was solid poured concrete, reinforced with steel rebar. It had survived 3 hurricanes. It would survive this. I helped Nia inside. I drew her a hot bath. When she took off the oversized coat she was wearing, I saw the bruises on her arms. Finger marks. He had grabbed her. Hard. I made her soup. I watched her eat like a starving animal. I put her in her old room, which I had kept exactly the way she left it. When she finally fell asleep clutching her old teddy bear, I turned off the light and closed the door softly. I walked down the hallway to my study. I locked the door. I went to the wall safe behind the painting of the jazz quartet. My hands were steady. I spun the dial. Click, click, click. Inside lay my service pistol, an M1911 Colt, clean, oiled, ready. Beside it was a box of ammunition. I took the gun out. The weight of it felt familiar. It felt like a solution. I could drive to the Sterling Heights Tower right now. I could walk past the doorman. I could take the elevator to the penthouse. I could put a piece of lead right between Derek Sterling's eyes before he even realized his mistake. It would be justice. An eye for an eye. A life for a life. I slid the magazine into the well. It clicked into place. I pulled back the slide, chambering around. I stared at the gun for a long time. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Then I ejected the round. I took the magazine out. I put the gun back in the safe. Killing him was too easy. If I killed him, he would be a victim. He would be the tragic businessman murdered by his crazy ex-wife's father. Nia would be the daughter of a murderer. Marcus would grow up hating me. No. Derek Sterling loved 2 things in this world: his money and his reputation. He loved his shiny glass towers and his expensive suits. He loved the way people looked at him with envy. I wanted to take that, all of it. I did not want to end his life. I wanted to deconstruct it. I wanted to pull the pins out of his existence one by one until the whole structure collapsed on top of him. I wanted him to be alive when he hit the bottom so he could feel the impact. I closed the safe. I sat at my desk and turned on my old lamp. I reached into the bottom drawer and pulled out a stack of blueprints. Not for my house, but copies of the city surveys I had kept from my days at the department. Old maps, drainage charts, zoning restrictions from 1950 that nobody looked at anymore. Derek was building a new 50-story tower downtown, the Sterling Heights. It was his crown jewel. He had leveraged everything he owned to build it. I unrolled the map of the downtown district. I put on my reading glasses. I picked up a red pen. "You made a mistake, Derek," I whispered to the empty room. "You looked at the skyline, but you forgot to look at the ground. You forgot that before you can build up, you have to make sure the earth beneath you is yours." I traced a line on the map, a small forgotten drainage easement that ran right through the center of his construction site. My finger stopped on a small parcel of land, 2 meters wide, 10 meters long, a nothing piece of dirt, but on the map it was marked with a code I recognized. I smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a man who just found the hairline fracture that could bring down a bridge. Tomorrow, I would go to see him. I would let him treat me like dirt one last time. I would let him think he had won. I would let him dig his own grave. And then I would pour the concrete. Nia moaned in her sleep from the other room, a sound of pure pain. I turned off the lamp. The darkness in the room felt heavy, but for the first time in hours, I did not feel helpless. I felt dangerous. I am Thaddeus Cole. I inspect foundations, and Derek Sterling was about to fail his inspection. The morning sun hit the glass facade of the Sterling Enterprises Tower and reflected a blinding white light that made my old eyes water. I stood on the sidewalk across the street for a long time, just watching the building. It was 60 stories of steel and arrogance piercing the sky. To the average person walking by, it looked like a monument to success. It looked like money. But I spent 40 years looking at buildings differently. I do not see the shiny glass skin. I see the stress points. I see the load-bearing columns groaning under the weight. And looking at Derek Sterling's headquarters, I saw a structure that was too tall and too thin, trying to defy gravity with nothing but ego holding it together. I adjusted my tie in the reflection of a shop window. It was my best suit, a navy blue wool blend I bought 10 years ago for Beatrice's funeral. It was a little tight around the shoulders now, and the fabric had started to shine at the elbows, but it was clean. I had pressed the crisp crease into the trousers myself that morning, while Nia slept the sleep of the dead in the back room. I put on my fedora. I needed to look like a man of respect, not for Derek, but for myself. I crossed the street. My left knee clicked with every step, a reminder of the years I spent climbing scaffolding and crawling through crawl spaces to keep this city safe. I walked through the revolving doors, and the air conditioning hit me like a wall of ice. The lobby smelled of expensive perfume and polished marble. It was quiet, the kind of quiet that costs money. My work boots, which usually made a solid thud on the pavement, made a sharp clacking sound on the pristine floor. People looked up. Young men in slim suits with phones pressed to their ears. Women carrying coffees that cost more than I used to make in an hour. They looked at me, and then they looked through me. To them, I was invisible, just another old black man who probably made a wrong turn looking for the service entrance. I walked up to the reception desk. It was a slab of black granite that looked like a tombstone. The young woman behind it did not stop typing on her computer. She had hair pulled back so tight, it looked painful. "Help you?" she asked without looking up. "I am here to see Derek Sterling," I said. My voice was low and steady, the deep baritone that used to make contractors sweat when I found a violation in their blueprints. She finally looked up. Her eyes scanned my old suit, my worn hands, and the scuff marks on my boots. She smirked. "Mr. Sterling is in meetings all day. Do you have an appointment? Tell him his father-in-law is here. Tell him Thaddeus is downstairs." She hesitated. The confidence in my voice made her pause. She picked up the phone and whispered something. She listened, then nodded slowly. Her eyes widened a fraction as she looked at me again. "He is coming down," she said. She sounded surprised. I stood there with my hands clasped behind my back, standing at parade rest, just like I did in the army. I did not sit on the velvet sofas. I did not take a mint from the crystal bowl. I waited. 5 minutes later, the elevator doors chimed, and there he was, Derek Sterling. He looked like he had just stepped out of a magazine. He was wearing a gray suit that fit him like a second skin, Italian silk, probably $5,000. His hair was perfectly styled. He was smiling that wide, charming smile that had fooled my daughter and fooled the banks and fooled half the city. He walked toward me with his arms open, as if we were the best of friends. "Thad," he boomed. His voice echoed in the cavernous lobby. "What a surprise! Good to see you." He went to hug me. I did not move. I did not raise my arms. I let him embrace a statue. He patted my back twice, a heavy, condescending pat, like you would give a horse you were about to sell. He pulled back but kept his hands on my shoulders, squeezing them slightly. "You look good, Thad. Keeping busy in retirement. Where is my daughter, Derek?" I did not raise my voice. I did not let the anger leak out. I kept it sealed tight in the boiler room of my chest. Derek sighed. He dropped his hands and shook his head, his face twisting into a mask of practiced sorrow. He looked around the lobby, making sure his employees were watching his performance. "It is a tragedy, Thad. A real tragedy. I tried to call you, but the number was disconnected. Nia, she is not well. She is at my house," I said. He did not blink. A professional liar never blinks. "Oh, thank God. Is she safe? We have been so worried." "Thad, you have to understand. The drugs took over. I tried to get her help. I sent her to the best clinics in Switzerland. I paid thousands. But she became paranoid. She started imagining things. Violence, abuse. It was heartbreaking to watch her decline." He lowered his voice, leaning in close. He smelled of peppermint and betrayal. "She abandoned us, Thad. She left me. She left Marcus. I had to protect our son. The courts agreed with me. She is a danger to herself and others. If she is with you, please make sure she takes her medication. I can write you a check right now for her expenses." He reached into his jacket pocket for his checkbook. The audacity of it. He thought he could buy my silence. He thought he could pay for my daughter's sanity with a piece of paper. I looked at his manicured hands, soft hands, hands that never held a shovel, hands that never built anything real. "I do not want your money," I said. He paused, checkbook halfway out. Then what do you want, Thad? I want to see my grandson. The air in the lobby seemed to drop another 10 degrees. The smile on Derek's face didn't just fade, it evaporated. The charm was gone. The grieving husband act was gone. What was left was the predator. His eyes went flat and cold. That is not going to happen, he said. He is my blood, Derek. He is my son, Derek snapped. And I have full custody, sole custody. Nia has no visitation rights, and by extension, neither do you. I do not want Marcus exposed to that side of the family. That side of the family. He meant the poor side, the black side, the side that lived in small brick houses and drove pickup trucks. You think you can erase us? I asked. I think I am protecting my legacy, Derek said. He took a step back and smoothed his lapel. Now I have a meeting to get to. Go home, Thad. Take care of Nia. But keep her away from my building and my family, or I will have her committed to a state institution. Do not test me. He turned his back on me, just like that, dismissed. I stepped forward. I did not mean to touch him. I just wanted him to look at me. I wanted him to see that I was not done. Derek, I said. He stopped and snapped his fingers. Security, he barked. Two men stepped out from the shadows near the elevators. They were big men, thick necks, uniforms that were too tight. One of them was white with a shaved head. He moved with the eagerness of a man who enjoyed hurting people. Mr. Sterling, the guard asked. This man is trespassing, Derek said loud enough for everyone to hear. He is harassing me. He is asking for money. Get him out of here. The guard stepped in front of me, blocking my view of Derek. Sir, you need to leave, the guard said. I am talking to my son-in-law, I said, standing my ground. Not anymore, you are not. The guard reached out and grabbed my arm. Do not touch me, son, I warned. I am a veteran. I know how to handle myself. The guard laughed, a short, ugly sound. He did not let go. Instead, he shoved me. It was not a gentle guide to the door. It was a hard, violent push. I was 71 years old. My balance was not what it used to be. My boots slipped on the polished marble. I went down. My hip hit the stone floor with a sickening crack. My hat flew off and slid across the lobby. A sharp bolt of pain shot up my spine. For a moment, the world spun. I saw the ceiling lights blurring. I heard gasps from the reception desk. I lay there on the cold floor, humiliated. I looked up. Derek was standing at the elevator doors, watching. He was not smiling. He was not frowning. He looked at me with absolute indifference, like I was a piece of trash that had blown in from the street, a nuisance to be swept away. Get him off the property, Derek said. Then he stepped into the elevator and the doors closed. The guard loomed over me, ready to grab me again. I held up a hand. I am getting up, I said. I am getting up. I rolled onto my side. I gripped my teeth against the pain in my hip. I used the reception desk to pull myself up. My legs were shaking. I must have looked pathetic. An old man in a cheap suit dusted with floor wax. The receptionist was staring at me, her mouth slightly open. I reached down and picked up my hat. I dusted it off slowly, carefully. I looked at the guard. He was smirking, expecting me to shout, expecting me to make a scene so he could tackle me again. I did not shout. I did not curse. I looked at the closed elevator doors where Derek had vanished. I pictured him rising up to his penthouse in the sky, rising above the city, rising above the law. I straightened my tie. I took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of money and corruption. You made a mistake, Derek, I said softly. My voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. The guard frowned. What did you say, old man? I looked the guard in the eye. I said he made a mistake, a structural one. What are you talking about? You never pour concrete on a fractured base, I said. It does not matter how high you build. If the foundation is compromised, the whole thing comes down. I put my hat on my head. I turned and walked toward the revolving doors. My limp was worse now. The pain was sharp, but my mind was clear. Derek thought he had won. He thought he had humiliated me. He thought physical force and legal papers were the only power that mattered. He did not know that he had just handed me the one thing I needed: motivation. I walked out into the heat of the city. I looked back at the tower one last time. Enjoy the view, Derek, I whispered, because I am about to pull the ground out from under your feet. The law is a funny thing. We are raised to believe it is a shield that protects the innocent. But when you get to my age, you realize the law is more like a spider web. It catches the small flies, the poor, and the desperate. But the big wasps, the ones with expensive suits and armies of lawyers, they just tear right through it. I sat in the office of Arthur Henderson, my attorney for 30 years. Arthur is a good man. He handled my will. He handled the deed to my house. But looking at him now, sitting behind his mahogany desk, surrounded by leather-bound books, I saw a defeated man. He would not look me in the eye. He kept shuffling the papers in front of him, as if hoping the words on them would change if he moved them fast enough. "Thaddeus, I have looked at this from every angle," Arthur said softly. He took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "The divorce papers, the property transfer deeds, the prenuptial agreement modification. It is tight. It is airtight." "But she did not know what she was signing, Arthur," I said. My voice was calm, but my hands were gripping the armrests of the chair so hard the wood creaked. He gaslighted her. He told her it was for tax purposes. "I know," Arthur said, "and I believe you. But in the eyes of the court, her signature is valid. Derek moved the assets into a blind trust 3 years ago. The house was sold to a shell company in the Caymans, which then leased it back to them. Technically, Nia has not owned that house since before the baby was born. And the custody order. Thaddeus, he has videos. He has testimony from paid doctors. If we go to court now with Nia in her current fragile state, he will destroy her. He will paint her as a drug addict and an unfit mother. You could lose any chance of ever seeing your grandson again." I sat there and let the silence fill the room. I could hear the hum of the air conditioner and the distant wail of a siren. It sounded like the city was screaming. "So that is it?" I asked. "He steals her life. He steals her child. He throws her under a bridge, and the law says, 'Well done, Mr. Sterling.'" Arthur put his glasses back on. "Go home, Thaddeus. Take care of Nia. Let her heal. Maybe in a year or two, when she is stable, we can petition for visitation. But right now, Derek Sterling is untouchable. He is the city's golden boy. He is building the tallest tower in the district. He has judges at his dinner parties. You cannot fight him with paper. He has more paper than you." I stood up. I buttoned my jacket. "You are right, Arthur," I said. "I cannot fight him with his paper." I walked out of the office. I did not take the elevator. I walked down the 6 flights of stairs. I needed to feel the impact of my boots on the concrete. I needed to feel the pain in my bad knee. It reminded me that I was real, that I was solid. Derek Sterling was a ghost, living in a world of electronic transfers and legal loopholes. But ghosts have a weakness. They have to haunt somewhere. I drove home slowly. The city passed by my window. I saw the neighborhoods I used to inspect. I saw the schools I helped certify. I saw the bridges I climbed to check for rust. This was my city. I knew her bones. I knew her scars. Derek thought he owned her because he put his name on a glass tower. But he was just a tourist. When I got home, Nia was sitting on the porch swing, staring blankly at the oak tree in the yard. She had a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, even though it was warm. She looked so small. I waved to her. She gave me a weak ghost of a smile. It broke my heart, and then it hardened it into something like cast iron. I went inside and locked the door. I walked past the kitchen, past the living room, and opened the door to the basement. The smell hit me immediately. Dust, old paper, damp earth. To most people, it smells like a storage room. To me, it smells like history. I pulled the chain on the single light bulb hanging from the ceiling. The shadows jumped back, revealing rows of metal shelves. My wife Beatrice used to call this my time capsule. When I retired from the Department of Buildings and Safety, I did not just take a gold watch and a handshake. I took my memories. And because I was a man who never trusted computers, I kept copies. Carbon copies. Remember those. The thin, flimsy paper that leaves blue ink on your fingers. I had boxes of them. 30 years of zoning permits. 30 years of soil samples. 30 years of corruption and favors and corners cut that I had noted in my black logbooks. I walked to the back of the room, to a heavy steel footlocker. It was rusted at the corners. I had not opened it in a decade. I kicked the latch open and lifted the lid. Inside there was no money. There were no diamonds. There was something more valuable. Maps. Hundreds of them. Rolled up tight and bound with rubber bands that had long since snapped. I cleared off my workbench, pushing aside jars of screws and old drill bits. I grabbed a handful of maps and spread them out. I needed to find the ground zero of Derek's empire. the Sterling Heights Tower. I knew where it was being built, the old warehouse district down by the river. It used to be a wasteland of abandoned factories and stray dogs. Now the developers called it the Riverfront Promenade. They painted over the graffiti, planted some imported trees, and charged $5,000 a month for a studio apartment. I found the modern zoning map first. There it was, Parcel 402, designated as mixed-use residential and commercial, approved for high-rise construction. The permit was signed by a city councilman who I knew for a fact used to take bribes in brown paper bags behind the donut shop on 5th Street. I dug deeper into the trunk. I wanted to see what Parcel 402 was before it was a shiny drawing in a brochure. I pulled out a map from 1995, still warehouses. I pulled out a map from 1985, a textile factory. I kept digging. The paper got yellow and brittle. I found a survey from 1972, my first year on the job. I remembered that year. It was the year the river caught fire because of the chemical runoff. I unrolled the 1972 map. I smoothed it out with my rough hands. I adjusted the light. My finger traced the river line. I followed the grid streets, Ash Avenue, Elm Street, and there it was, Parcel 402. But in 1972, it was not a warehouse, and it certainly was not residential. It was labeled in stark black block letters, ChemCorp Processing Unit 4. I froze. I knew that name, ChemCorp. They were a nightmare. They processed industrial solvents, heavy metals, the kind of stuff that glows in the dark. They went bankrupt in the late 70s after a class action lawsuit involving workers getting leukemia. I grabbed my magnifying glass. I leaned in close. There was a small handwritten note in the margin of the map. My handwriting, from 50 years ago. Soil saturation levels critical. Benzene, lead, arsenic. Site condemned. Concrete cap required. No excavation permitted below 10 feet. I stood up straight. My spine cracked. I felt a rush of adrenaline that made my hands shake. Derek Sterling was digging a 50-foot foundation for an underground parking garage. He was not just building a tower. He was piercing the cap. He was digging straight into a toxic grave. I went to my filing cabinet. I pulled out the drawer marked Environmental Impact Reports. If Derek was building there, he needed a clean bill of health for the soil. He needed a Phase 1 and Phase 2 environmental study. I looked at the public records I had printed out earlier from the city website, the ones Derek used to get his permits. The report was there, signed by a private inspection firm I had never heard of. It said the soil was clean. It said there was no history of industrial contamination. It was a lie, a forgery, or a payoff. Derek had skipped the remediation. Cleaning up that site would have cost him $20 million and delayed the project by 2 years. He did not have the time, and he did not want to spend the money, so he just pretended the poison was not there. He decided to let future families raise their children on top of a cancer cluster, so he could buy a bigger boat. I looked at the map again. The ink was faded, but the truth was staring me in the face. You can hide money in the Cayman Islands. Derek, I whispered to the empty basement. You can hide your mistress in a penthouse, but you cannot hide history. I picked up my old rotary phone on the workbench. I dialed a number I had not called in years. It rang 4 times. Yeah, a gruff voice answered. Marcus, I said. It is Thaddeus Cole. I thought you were dead. Not yet, Marcus. I need a favor. You still have that drilling rig? Yeah, why? I need to take some soil samples. Tonight. And I need you to bring the heavy drill. Where are we going, Thad? We are going fishing, Marcus, and we are going to catch a shark. I hung up the phone. I looked at the map one last time. Then I rolled it up carefully and tucked it under my arm. The lawyer said I had no case. He was right. I did not have a legal case. I had something better. I had a biological weapon. And Derek Sterling had just pulled the pin on himself. There is an old saying in the construction business. If you cannot break down the front door, you check the service entrance. And if the service entrance is locked, you find the man who has the master key and you buy him a drink. Derek Sterling had built a fortress around himself. He had high-priced lawyers guarding the gate and security guards watching the lobby. He thought he was safe in his ivory tower, but he forgot one thing. Every tower needs maintenance. Every castle needs supplies. And when you are desperate, you let anyone in who promises to put out the fire. I sat in the back of Marcus's Lincoln town car. It was an old model, big as a boat, with leather seats that smelled of vanilla and stale cigar smoke. Marcus was in the driver's seat, looking at himself in the rearview mirror. He was 70 years old, but he still had the shoulders of a linebacker, and a face that looked like it had been carved out of granite. He was wearing a suit I had bought him yesterday. It was expensive, but looked slightly flashy. The kind of suit a man wears when he cuts corners. "You look like a crook, Marcus," I said. Marcus grinned, showing a gold tooth. "That is the point, Thad. Derek does not want an honest man right now. Honest men take 6 months to get permits. Honest men follow the rules. Derek is drowning. He needs a guy who knows a guy. He needs a magician." We had spent the last 3 days setting up the trap. It was a shell company called Apex Environmental Solutions. We registered it in a neighboring state. We built a website that looked professional, filled with stock photos of men in hard hats, pointing at clean rivers. We even rented a virtual office address in the financial district. To the outside world, Apex was a boutique consulting firm that specialized in difficult remediation cases. In reality, Apex was just me, Marcus, and a burner phone. The bait was simple. Derek needed an environmental clearance certificate to unlock his $50 million loan from the bank. The city had shut him down. The red tag was still hanging on its fence. Every day the site sat silent. He was losing money. He was desperate. I handed Marcus the briefcase. Inside was a contract. It was thick and full of legal jargon that my lawyer, Arthur, had drafted. It promised that Apex could expedite the soil testing and get the stop work order lifted within 10 days. But buried in paragraph 42 was a clause that gave Apex full, unrestricted access to all proprietary data blueprints and internal communications regarding the Sterling Heights project for the purpose of compliance verification. "He is not going to read it," I said. "He is too arrogant to read the fine print and too desperate to care." Marcus took the briefcase. He checked his watch. "Showtime," he said. I watched him walk into the temporary construction office Derek had set up in a trailer on the edge of the site. It was raining lightly, a gray, miserable drizzle that matched the mood of the stalled project. I could not go in. Derek would recognize me. So I sat in the car and waited. I turned on the receiver for the small bug I had planted in Marcus's lapel pocket. The audio crackled and then cleared. I heard the sound of a door opening. "Mr. Sterling." Marcus's voice was deep and smooth. "I am Marcus King from Apex." I heard a chair scrape. Derek sounded tired. His voice was tight and clipped. "You are late. I do not have time for games. Your email said you could fix this mess. Can you fix it or not?" "I can fix it," Marcus said. He sounded bored, as if fixing a massive environmental violation was something he did before breakfast. "But it is not going to be cheap, and it is not going to be by the book." I heard Derek let out a short, bitter laugh. "I do not care about the book. I care about the timeline. The city inspector Rodriguez has a vendetta against me. He is asking for core samples that go down 50 feet. If we do that, we will find—" Derek stopped. He caught himself. "We will find nothing," Marcus finished for him, "because my team will handle the samples. We have our own labs. We have our own chain of custody. By the time the report gets back to the city, the soil will look as clean as a church floor." There was a silence. I could imagine Derek studying Marcus. He was looking for a wire. He was looking for a trap. But mostly, he was looking for a savior. He saw an old black contractor with a gold tooth and a flashy suit, and he saw exactly what he wanted to see. Corruption. Derek understood corruption. He was comfortable with it. "How much?" Derek asked. 200,000, Marcus said. 50 now. 50 when the samples are collected. 100 when the tag comes down. "Done," Derek said instantly. I smiled in the car. He didn't even negotiate. He was terrified. "But I need access," Marcus said. "I need everything. I need the original CAD files. I need the structural schematics. I need the geological surveys you buried. I cannot fix the problem if I do not know where the bodies are hidden." I heard the hesitation. "Those are confidential files," Derek said. "Mr. Sterling," Marcus said, his voice dropping lower, "you are asking me to commit a felony for you. You are asking me to forge federal environmental documents. If I go down, I go down hard. I need insurance. I need to know exactly what I am covering up. If you don't trust me, call the other guys. I am sure they will be happy to wait 6 months for the city to finish their investigation. I heard the sound of footsteps pacing, then a heavy sigh. Fine, Derek said. Fine, just get it done. I heard the sound of a pen scratching on paper, the sound of a check being torn. Here's the deposit, Derek said, and here's the external hard drive. It has everything. Every email, every blueprint, every survey. Do not lose it, and do not let anyone see it, Mr. Sterling Marcus said. I am a professional. You will never see me again until the job is done. The door opened. I slumped down in the seat. Marcus walked out of the trailer. He was walking slowly, deliberately, shielding the briefcase from the rain. He didn't look back. He got into the car and closed the door. The smell of rain and success filled the cabin. He tossed the hard drive onto the seat between us. It was a small black brick. To anyone else, it was just plastic and silicon. To me, it was the keys to the kingdom. Did he read the contract, I asked? Marcus laughed. He glanced at the signature page, then tossed it in the back. He didn't read a word. He just wanted to know if I could bribe Rodriguez. And what did you tell him? I told him everyone has a price. I picked up the hard drive. My hands were trembling slightly. Not from fear, but from anticipation. This drive contained the proof of every corner Derek had cut, every safety regulation he had ignored, every lie he had told the bank. But more importantly, it contained the structural details, the load-bearing calculations. I knew Derek. I knew he was cheap. I suspected that he wasn't just skimping on the environmental safety. I suspected he was cheating on the materials, too, using grade B steel instead of grade A, using concrete with too much sand. If I could prove that, I wouldn't just stop the building. I would condemn it. Drive, Marcus, I said. Where to, Thad? To the bank, I said. We need to cash this check before he realizes he just hired his own executioner. And then we are going to my basement. We have a lot of reading to do. As we drove away, I looked back at the trailer. I saw Derek standing in the doorway, watching us leave. He looked relieved. He thought he had just bought his way out of trouble. He thought he had found a loophole. He didn't know that he had just let the Trojan horse into the city. And tonight, while he slept thinking he was safe, the soldiers were going to climb out and open the gates. I plugged the hard drive into my laptop as we drove. The screen lit up. Folders appeared. Thousands of files. Project Titan. Financials. Hidden. Vendor kickbacks. I clicked on a folder named Foundation Specs. I scanned the numbers. My eyes narrowed. Stop the car, I said. Marcus slammed on the brakes. What is it, Thad? I looked at the screen. The numbers didn't add up. The load calculations were for a 30-story building, but he was building 50. He is not just building on bad soil, I whispered. He is building a house of cards. If the wind blows hard enough, this thing won't just crack. It will topple over. I looked at Marcus. He is risking thousands of lives, I said. Then we bury him, Marcus said. We drove on. The rain fell harder, washing the city streets clean. But nothing could wash away the stain of what Derek Sterling was doing. I closed the laptop. I had what I needed. The infiltration was a success. The enemy had given us his battle plans. Now, it was time to start the war. In construction, we call it a facade. It is the pretty stone or glass you put on the outside of a building to hide the steel and the concrete and the wires. It is what sells the condo. It is what makes people stop and stare. But a facade is not structural. It cannot hold weight. And if you hit it with a sledgehammer, it does not bend. It shatters. Chloe Sterling was Derek's facade. She was 26 years old, with a smile that cost $30,000 and a wardrobe that cost more than my house. She was the trophy he put on his arm to show the world he had made it. But I knew something about trophies. They are hollow, and they tarnish if you do not polish them every day. I sat in my study watching her on my laptop. Nia was asleep in the other room, finally resting after her first session with the therapist. I had the volume down low. Chloe was on Instagram. She was doing a live video from her walk-in closet, which was the size of my living room. "Hey guys," she chirped, waving a diamond bracelet at the camera. "I am just getting ready for the Children's Charity Gala tonight. Derek is so generous, he surprised me with this little sparkle. Remember, guys, marry a man who treats you like a queen." I closed the laptop. Treat her like a queen. He had treated my daughter like a queen once, too, until she became inconvenient, until she had a child and lost the model figure, until she started asking questions about where the money was coming from. I needed to break the facade, but I could not do it myself. An old man like me following a girl like Chloe would attract attention. I needed a professional. I called Ray. Ray was a private investigator who used to work Vice in the precinct where I did my building inspections. He was expensive and he smelled like cheap cigars, but he could find a needle in a haystack if the needle was sleeping with someone else's wife. I met Ray at a diner on the edge of town. He slid a manila envelope across the sticky table. "You were right, Thad," Ray said, taking a bite of his burger. "Your boy Derek is a creature of habit. He is not just cheating, he is recycling his moves." I opened the envelope. Photographs, high resolution. Derek entering a boutique hotel on the west side. Derek at a candlelit dinner. Derek kissing a woman who was not Chloe. "Who is she?" I asked. "Her name is Jessica," Ray said. "She is 22. She is the new executive assistant, just started 3 months ago." I looked at the photos. The girl looked young, naive. She looked at Derek with the same adoration Nia once had. And Chloe. "There is more," Ray said. "Look at the receipt." I pulled out a copy of a credit card statement. It was for a jewelry store. The date was yesterday. A diamond tennis bracelet, $12,000. I thought back to the video I just watched, Chloe showing off her new gift. "He bought 2, I said. Ray chuckled. "Classic move. Buy one for the wife to keep her happy. Buy one for the mistress to keep her quiet. Use the company card for both and write it off as client gifts." The guy is arrogant Thad. He thinks he is invincible. He is about to find out he is not, I said. I paid Ray in cash. I took the envelope. I sat in my truck for a long time, staring at the pictures. I felt a strange pang of pity for Chloe, just a small one. She was vain, and she was cruel to Nia, but she was also a victim. She was just the next product on Derek's assembly line. He used people up and replaced them with newer models. But pity is a luxury I could not afford. Chloe was the weak point in Derek's armor. She was the loose brick, and I was going to pull it out. Tonight was the Children's Charity Gala. It was the biggest social event of the season. The mayor would be there, the press would be there. Derek was the keynote speaker. He needed this night to go perfectly. He needed to project the image of the successful family man to calm the investors who were getting nervous about the construction delays at the Sterling Heights Tower. I drove home and printed copies of the photos. I printed the receipt showing the purchase of 2 identical bracelets. I put them in a thick, cream-colored envelope. I did not write a note. The pictures spoke a language everyone understood. I needed a delivery system. I could not walk into the ballroom myself. I was persona non grata. But the catering staff, they were invisible people, like me. I knew the catering manager, a woman named Sarah, whose son I had helped get into a trade school years ago. I called her. "Sarah, I need a favor." "Anything, Mr. Cole." "I need an envelope delivered to table 1, to Mrs. Sterling. It has to be right before the speeches start, right when the cameras are live. Consider it done." I did not go to the gala. I sat in my living room with Nia. We made popcorn. I told her we were going to watch a movie, but instead I connected my laptop to the television. "What are we watching, Daddy?" Nia asked. She was looking better. The color was returning to her cheeks. "We are watching a controlled demolition," I said. I pulled up the live stream of the gala. The ballroom was glittering with chandeliers, round tables covered in white linen, men in tuxedos, women in gowns that cost more than a car. There was Derek, sitting at the head table looking like a king. He was laughing at something the mayor said. His hand was resting possessively on the back of Chloe's chair. Chloe looked stunning in a red dress. She was checking her phone constantly, probably counting likes on her earlier video. She looked happy. She looked secure. Then I saw it. A waiter moved through the crowd. He stopped at table 1. He placed the cream envelope on Chloe's plate. I leaned forward. Nia stopped eating popcorn. "Who is that?" Nia asked, pointing at the screen. "Just watch." Chloe looked at the envelope. She frowned. She probably thought it was a donation card or a note from a fan. She picked it up. She opened it with a manicured nail. I watched her face. The live stream camera was zoomed in on the head table waiting for Derek's speech. The resolution was crystal clear. I saw the moment the blood drained from her face. I saw the confusion turn to shock, and then the shock turned to rage. She pulled out the photo of Derek kissing Jessica. She pulled out the receipt. She looked at the bracelet on her wrist. Then she looked at the receipt again. 2 bracelets. Derek leaned over and whispered something in her ear, probably telling her to put the mail away. Chloe did not put it away. She stood up. Her chair scraped loudly against the floor. The sound cut through the murmuring crowd. Derek looked up, annoyed. "Chloe, darling, sit down," he hissed. "I am about to speak." Chloe picked up her wine glass. Red wine, a heavy, expensive Cabernet. She threw it. It hit Derek square in the chest. The red liquid exploded over his white tuxedo shirt like a gunshot wound. The ballroom went silent. The music stopped. "You lying son of a bitch," Chloe screamed. Her voice was shrill, amplified by the microphone on the podium just a few feet away. Derek jumped up, wiping at his shirt. "Chloe, have you lost your mind? You bought her the same bracelet," Chloe shrieked. She reached into the envelope and grabbed the photos. She threw them into the air like confetti. They fluttered down onto the table, onto the floor, into the laps of the shocked guests. "You told me you were at a board meeting. You were with her, that little receptionist." She turned to the camera. The cameraman was too stunned to cut the feed. He zoomed in. "Look at him," she yelled, pointing a shaking finger at Derek. "He is a fraud. He is broke. He is leveraging the house to pay for his mistress. He is a liar." Derek grabbed her arm. "Security!" he shouted. "Get her out of here!" "Do not touch me," Chloe screamed. She swung her purse and hit him in the face. The clasp of the purse caught him on the cheek, cutting him. The crowd was in chaos. Phones were out. Flashes were popping. The mayor was being hurried away by his detail. I looked at the screen. Derek Sterling stood there, covered in wine, bleeding from his cheek, surrounded by the wreckage of his perfect image. He looked at the camera with wild, panicked eyes. Nia let out a gasp. Is that true, Daddy? Is he broke?" "He is getting there," I said. On the screen, security guards were dragging a kicking, screaming Chloe away. But the damage was done. The live stream had 50,000 viewers. The clips were already circulating on Twitter. I checked my phone. I had a stock alert set up for Sterling Enterprises. It pinged. After hours trading, the stock had dropped 4% in 2 minutes. It was not a crash yet, but it was a crack. The investors who were already nervous about the construction delays now saw a CEO who was unstable, reckless, and publicly humiliated. They saw a man who could not manage his own house, let alone a skyscraper. I turned off the TV. The room felt quiet and peaceful. Nia looked at me. Her eyes were wide. "You did that," she whispered. I picked up the remote and set it down gently. "I did not do anything, Nia. I just delivered the mail. Derek did that to himself." I stood up and went to the window. I looked out at the dark street. This was just the beginning. The facade was broken. Now the weather could get in, and the storm was just starting. Derek would be busy tomorrow. He would be doing damage control. He would be fighting with divorce lawyers. He would be trying to calm the banks. He would be distracted. And while he was looking at the wreckage of his marriage, he would not notice the man standing at the edge of his property line, with a legal document that was about to turn his $50 million tower into the world's most expensive pile of useless steel. "Go to bed, Nia," I said. "We have a big day tomorrow." "What are we doing tomorrow?" she asked. "Tomorrow," I said, closing the blinds, "we are going to buy a piece of land." The phone in my pocket buzzed. It was a text from Ray. "Show looks good from here, Thad. That wine stain is never coming out." I deleted the text. The first wall had fallen. Now it was time to go after the foundation. I walked down the hall to my bedroom. For the first time in years, I did not limp. My step was light. Justice is a heavy burden, but tonight it felt lighter than air. If Derek Sterling thought a wine stain was bad, wait until he saw what I was going to do to his water pipes. I turned off the lights. The house was dark, but my mind was bright with plans. The inspection continues, and Mr. Sterling was failing on every level. There is a sound that every developer fears more than anything else in the world. It is not the sound of a police siren. It is not the sound of a lawsuit landing on a desk. It is silence. Absolute grinding silence on a construction site that should be roaring with life. When the jackhammers stop and the cranes freeze against the sky, and the workers pack up their lunch pails at 10 in the morning, that is the sound of money burning. I sat in my study with the blinds drawn. On my desk was the dossier I had spent 3 nights compiling. It was not a rant. It was not an emotional plea. It was 60 pages of cold, hard mathematics. I had taken the soil samples Marcus and I drilled from the site. I had sent them to a lab in a different state under a fake name. The results were exactly what I expected. Benzene levels were off the charts. The ground stability was non-existent. Deere was trying to build a 50-story glass needle on top of a sponge soaked in poison. But the soil report was just the ammunition. The weapon was the delivery system. I put the documents in a plain manila envelope. No return address. I did not mail it. Mail gets lost in the mailroom. Mail gets screened by secretaries. I needed this to land directly in the hands of the one man in the Department of Buildings who could not be bought, David Rodriguez. I trained David 20 years ago. He was a scrawny kid from the Bronx who loved concrete the way other men loved sports cars. I taught him how to spot a bribe. I taught him that a safety inspector is the only line of defense between a sleeping family and a tragedy. David was now the chief inspector for the downtown district. He was rigid, he was difficult, and he hated guys like Derek Sterling. I paid a courier cash to drop the package at David's desk at 7 in the morning. I knew David. He arrived at 7:15. He drank his black coffee, and he read every single piece of paper that landed on his desk. By 9 o'clock, I was parked 2 blocks away from the Sterling Heights construction site. I had a thermos of coffee and a pair of binoculars. The site was a hive of activity. Cement mixers were churning. Sparks were flying from welders' torches. Derek was there. I saw him in his white hard hat standing next to the foreman, pointing at something on a tablet. He looked stressed. The breakdown of his marriage was all over the tabloids. His investors were spooked. He needed this building to go up fast to prove he was still the king of the city. Then I saw the city car pull up. It was a white sedan with the municipal seal on the door. David Rodriguez stepped out. He was followed by 3 other inspectors and a geologist. They were not smiling. They were not carrying clipboards for a routine check. They were carrying equipment, ground-penetrating radar, core samplers. I adjusted my binoculars. I saw the moment the foreman noticed them. He tapped Derek on the shoulder. Derek turned around. I could see his body language change instantly. He put on that fake charming smile. He walked over to David with his hand extended. David did not shake his hand. He handed Derek a piece of paper. It was red. Even from 2 blocks away, I could see the color. In the construction world, we call it the red tag of death. It is a stop work order, immediate, indefinite. Derek started waving his arms. He was shouting. I could not hear the words, but I knew the script. He was threatening to call the mayor. He was threatening to sue. He was telling David that this was a mistake. David just crossed his arms. He pointed to the ground. The geologist started drilling. Then the whistle blew. The foreman yelled something into his radio. One by one, the machines stopped. The cement mixers cut their engines. The cranes locked their gears. The welders put down their torches. The silence rolled over the site like a fog. Derek stood there in the middle of his quiet empire, looking small. He pulled out his phone and started dialing frantically. I poured myself another cup of coffee. It tasted like victory. The thing about a stop work order based on environmental hazards is that it is radioactive. You cannot just pay a fine and make it go away. The city has to investigate. They have to run their own tests. That takes weeks, sometimes months. And in the world of high finance, time is the only commodity you cannot buy. I drove home. When I walked in, Nia was in the kitchen. She was making a sandwich. She was humming. It was a small thing, but hearing her hum was like seeing a flower grow through concrete. "Daddy," she said. "Derek called me." I stopped taking off my boots. "Did you answer?" "No." I let it go to voicemail. He sounded scared. "Play it for me." She tapped her phone. Derek's voice filled the kitchen. It was high-pitched, tight with panic. "Nia, pick up the phone. I know you are behind this. I know your crazy father is behind this. Who did he talk to? Who did he pay off? You tell him to call off his dogs or I will ruin you. I will make sure you never see Marcus again. Do you hear me? I am Derek Sterling. Nobody shuts me down." The message ended. Nia looked at me. Her hands were shaking a little, but her eyes were dry. "He thinks I paid someone off," I said softly. "He thinks the only way to win is to cheat. That is why he is going to lose." I took the phone from her hands. "Block the number, Nia. Let him scream into the void." That afternoon, I went to my old favorite bar, the Rusty Nail. It was a place where contractors and union reps hung out. I sat in the back booth and ordered a club soda. I saw Mickey the Mouth at the bar. Mickey was a fixer. If you needed a permit expedited or a violation overlooked, you called Mickey. He was greasy, and he had no morals, but he had his ear to the ground. I watched him. His phone rang. He looked at the screen, grimaced, and let it ring. It rang again. Mickey picked it up. "Look, Mr. Sterling, I cannot help you," Mickey said. His voice carried across the quiet bar. "No, listen to me. This isn't a parking ticket. This is a hazmat violation. The report came from a pro. It cited codes from the 70s. It had geological surveys attached. Nobody is going to touch this. It is too hot. If I try to bribe Rodriguez on this, he will arrest me. You are on your own." Mickey hung up. He looked at the bartender and shook his head. "Guy is toxic," he muttered. I finished my club soda and left a $20 tip. The noose was tightening. When a construction project stops, the money does not stop. The interest on the loans keeps ticking. The equipment rental fees keep piling up. The insurance premiums skyrocket. Derek was burning through cash at a rate of $50,000 a day just to watch an empty dirt lot. And the banks, they are like sharks. They can smell blood in the water from miles away. I went home and logged into the financial news terminal I subscribed to. It was an expensive subscription, but worth every penny. There was a new headline on the local business ticker. Sterling Heights project halted amidst environmental concerns. Lenders reassessing risk. I leaned back in my chair. Reassessing risk. That is banker talk for panic. Derek had borrowed $50 million from the heavy hitters. New York money. Hedge fund money. These were not people who cared about his charm or his smile. They cared about yield. And right now, their yield was zero. I checked the fine print of the standard commercial loan agreements. I knew them by heart. There is always a clause called the Material Adverse Change Clause. It means that if something happens that significantly lowers the value of the project, the bank can demand immediate repayment of the entire loan. Derek did not have $50 million. He probably did not have $5 million liquid. His money was all tied up in assets, in the penthouse, in the cars, in the jewelry he bought for his women. My phone rang. It was Ray, the private investigator. "Thad, you are not going to believe this," Ray said. "Try me. Derek is at the First National Bank downtown. My guy says he has been in with the vice president of commercial lending for 2 hours. He was yelling so loud the secretary had to close the blinds." "Is he coming out?" I asked. "He is walking out now. He looks like he just went 12 rounds with Tyson. He is loosening his tie. He is kicking the tire of his Bentley." "He did not get the extension," I said. "Nope. And Thad, get this. His credit cards were declined at lunch. He tried to buy a steak for the union boss to see if he could get the workers to cross the picket line. The card bounced. I closed my eyes and let out a long, slow breath. The first crack had appeared. It started in the soil, but now it was running up the walls of his life. Derek Sterling was discovering the physics of consequences. You can build a lie as high as you want, but gravity always wins in the end. I went to the kitchen window. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of bruised purple. I looked at the swing set in the backyard, where my daughter used to play, where my grandson should be playing. "We are coming for you, Marcus," I whispered. The money was drying up. The reputation was in tatters. The facade was crumbling. But I was not done. I did not just want him broke. I wanted him to understand helplessness. I wanted him to feel what Nia felt when he threw her out on the street. I walked back to my study. I pulled out another map. This one was not of the ground. It was of the infrastructure, the pipes, the power lines, the arteries of the city. The stop work order would hold him for a few weeks, but eventually he might find a corrupt judge or a way to cap the soil. He might wiggle out. I needed a permanent block. I needed a checkmate. I looked at the small strip of land on the map, the easement, the tiny 2-meter-wide path that ran right across the entrance to his site. It was time to pay a visit to the Veterans Association Hall. It was time to buy a piece of dirt that was worth more than gold. Derek was about to learn that he could not flush a toilet in his 50-story tower without my permission. I picked up my keys. The night was young, and I had a purchase to make. Rebuilding a human being is harder than rebuilding a skyscraper. With steel and concrete, you have formulas. You know exactly how much pressure a beam can take before it buckles. You know the melting point of iron. You know that if you pour the foundation deep enough, the structure will stand against the wind. But a human soul has no blueprints. There is no manual for how to fix a woman who has been systematically broken by the person who swore to protect her. For the first week, Nia was a ghost in my house. She moved silently from her bedroom to the kitchen, avoiding the windows, avoiding the mirrors. She jumped when the phone rang. She flinched when the toaster popped. Derek Sterling had not just taken her money, he had taken her voice. He had convinced her that she was crazy, that she was weak, that she was unworthy of being a mother. That is what predators do. They do not just hunt you, they hollow you out so they can wear your skin. I watched her from my armchair in the living room. My heart wanted to wrap her in blankets and tell her everything was going to be okay. But my head knew better. Comfort is soft. Comfort is a pillow, and you cannot fight a war with a pillow. Nia needed armor. She needed to remember who she was before she became Mrs. Sterling. She was a coal, and coals do not break. We might bend, we might crack, but we never collapse. I hired Dr. Evans. She was not the kind of therapist who nods and asks you how you feel about your childhood. She was a former military psychologist who worked with soldiers coming back from the desert, with their minds shattered by IEDs. She was tough, she was expensive, and she was exactly what Nia needed. She came to the house 3 times a week. I would sit on the porch, whittling a piece of cedar while they talked in the living room. Sometimes I heard crying, deep, guttural sobbing that made me want to rush in and stop it, but I stayed in my chair. You cannot drain a wound if you do not lance it first. The poison has to come out. By the 3rd week, the crying stopped. It was replaced by silence, and then, slowly, by questions. Why did I let him do it? Nia asked one evening over dinner. We were eating pot roast, the same recipe her mother used to make. Why did I sign those papers, Daddy? Why didn't I fight back? Because you were drowning, I said. He held your head underwater and told you to breathe. You cannot blame the drowning man for not swimming. You can only teach him how to build a boat. She looked at her hands. They were not trembling anymore. The bruises on her arms had faded to yellow and then disappeared, but the scars in her eyes were still there. I want to see Marcus, she whispered. Then you have to stand up, I said. You have to be the mother he remembers, not the victim Derek created. I put my fork down. Call him, I said. Nia looked up sharply. What? Call Derek. Demand to see your son. He has a restraining order, Daddy. He will call the police. Let him call the police. I have friends in the department too. But you need to make the call. You need to hear his voice and realize he is just a man. He is not a monster under the bed. He is just a greedy, lying little man who is currently losing $50,000 a day because of a soil report. I pushed her phone across the table. Do it, Nia. She stared at the black screen. I could see the terror rising in her throat. Her breathing got shallow. She reached for the phone and pulled her hand back like it was hot iron. I waited. I did not push. I just sat there like a stone wall she could lean on. She picked up the phone. She unlocked it. Her thumb hovered over the contact list. Put it on speaker, I said, and record it. Why? Because in construction, we document everything. Every crack, every leak, every structural failure. If he insults you, we record it. If he threatens you, we record it. We are building a case, Nia, and your silence is no longer an option. She pressed the button. The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. I could feel the tension in the room stretching tight. Then he picked up. What do you want? Derek's voice was different than before. It was not the smooth baritone of the charming CEO. It was jagged, stressed. I could hear the background noise of a busy office, or maybe a lawyer's conference room. He sounded like a man who hadn't slept in days. Hello, Derek, Nia said. Her voice was small, wobbly. I leaned forward and caught her eye. I mouthed the word, louder. She took a breath. She sat up straighter. Hello, Derek, she said again firmly. I am calling about Marcus. I want to see my son. Derek laughed. It was a cold, cruel sound. You want to see him? You? Look at yourself, Nia. You are a mess. You are living in a shack with your senile father. You have no money. You have no home. You think a judge is going to let a junkie near my son? I am not a junkie, Derek. I never was. You made that up. Oh, please, spare me the innocent act. I have the medical reports. I paid good money for those doctors to say whatever I wanted. I mean, to diagnose you properly. He slipped. He was angry, and he was arrogant, and he slipped. Nia's eyes widened. She looked at the recording icon spinning on the screen. "I am clean," Derek, Nia said. "I am healthy, and I know about the construction site. I know about the stop work order." There was a silence on the other end. A heavy, dangerous silence. "You listen to me, you bitch," Derek hissed. His voice dropped to a snarl. "You and your old man think you are clever. You think you can sabotage my legacy. I will bury you. Do you hear me? I will bury you so deep nobody will ever find you. You will never see Marcus again. I will tell him his mother is dead. I will tell him she died in a gutter because she loved pills more than she loved him." I watched Nia's face. I expected tears. I expected her to crumble, to hang up the phone, to run to her room and hide under the covers. That is what the old Nia would have done. But she did not cry. Her face went still, her jaw set. The fear in her eyes evaporated and was replaced by something much colder, something that looked a lot like the steel in my own eyes. She looked at the phone as if she was holding a dead insect. "Are you done, Derek?" she asked. "What did you say?" "I asked if you were done threatening me, because I am done listening." She tapped the red button. The call ended. The kitchen was quiet. The only sound was the refrigerator humming and the beating of my own heart. I was proud. I was so proud I could hardly breathe. I reached out to take her hand. "It is okay, baby girl," I said softly. "It is okay to cry. He is a bastard. Words cannot hurt you anymore." Nia looked at me. Her eyes were dry, flint dry. "I am not crying, Daddy," she said. She picked up the phone and saved the recording. She renamed the file. "Evidence 1. He said he paid the doctors," she said. Her voice was steady. "Did you hear that, Daddy? He admitted he paid the doctors to diagnose me." I nodded. I heard it. "That is fraud," Nia said. "That is perjury. That is grounds to overturn the custody order." She stood up. She walked to the window and looked out at the dark yard. She looked like a queen surveying her kingdom, a queen who had just returned from exile. "You asked me if I wanted to destroy him, Daddy," she said. "You asked me if I wanted to take his money." "Yes, I did. I was wrong," she said. She turned to face me. The kitchen light cast shadows across her face, making her look older, stronger, dangerous. "Money is not enough. He can make more money. He can find new investors. He can build another tower." She walked back to the table and leaned on it, staring into my eyes. "I do not want him poor. I want him exposed. I want the world to see what he is. I want him to walk down the street and have people spit on him. I want him to lose his name. I want him to lose his friends. I want him to lose the respect of every single person who ever looked up to him." She picked up the recording. "He destroyed my reputation, Daddy. He made me a pariah. He took my dignity." She smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a woman who knows exactly where the demolition charges are placed. "I want his honor," she said. "I want to strip him down to the studs until there is nothing left but the lie." I looked at my daughter. The little girl who used to play with dolls was gone. The woman standing before me was a warrior. She had been forged in the fire of betrayal and hammered into shape by pain. She was magnificent. I stood up and poured 2 glasses of water. I handed one to her. "To the foundation," I said. "To the demolition," she replied. We drank. The water tasted cool and clean. "We have the recording," I said. "We have the soil report. We have the leverage. But we are not done yet," Nia said. "He still has Marcus, and he still thinks he can win. We need to take away his support system. We need to turn his own people against him." She sat down and pulled out a notepad. "Who is next?" she asked. I looked at her list. We had hit the construction. We had hit the wife. Now we needed to hit the money. I pulled the laptop toward me. "Chloe gave me his passwords," I said. "Before she left the gala, she sent me a picture of his laptop screen. I know where he hides the bodies, Nia." Nia nodded. "Then let's dig them up." She opened the laptop. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. "Welcome back, Nia," I whispered to myself. The enemy was wounded. He was bleeding cash. He was bleeding credibility. But a wounded animal is dangerous. Derek would strike back. I knew that. But he didn't know that he wasn't fighting an old man and a victim anymore. He was fighting a team. He was fighting the Cole family. And we were just getting started. They say that every man has a price. That is what they teach you in business school. They teach you that everything is a negotiation, and that honor is just a variable in the equation like interest rates or lumber costs. Derek Sterling believed this with every fiber of his being. He believed that he could buy his way out of hell if he just wrote a big enough check. He was about to learn that there are some things in this world that are not for sale, and there are some debts that can only be paid in pain. I received the email on a Tuesday morning. It was from Derek's executive assistant. It was marked urgent and confidential. It was addressed to the owner of Parcel 7B. They did not know the owner was Thaddeus Cole. They only knew it was a holding company I had registered the day before. The email was polite. It was desperate. It requested an immediate meeting to discuss a mutually beneficial acquisition. Mutually beneficial. That is corporate speak for, we are terrified, and we will pay you anything to go away. I put on my suit. The same suit I wore the day he threw me out. The same suit I wore when I inspected the city's bridges. I polished my boots until I could see my own reflection in the black leather. I looked at myself in the mirror. I did not look like a rich man. I did not look like a powerful man. I looked like a man who was about to deliver a eviction notice to the devil. I drove to the Sterling Tower. The construction site across the street was still silent. The cranes were still frozen against the gray sky. But today, there was a new addition. A chain-link fence I had installed around my 2-meter strip of land. On the fence was a sign, private property, no trespassing, no utility crossings. I walked into the lobby. The same guard was there, the one who had pushed me. He looked up when I walked in. He started to stand up, ready to block my path again. But then he saw the visitor pass in my hand. It had been emailed to me. It was a VIP pass. He looked at the pass. He looked at me. He looked confused. I am here for the 10 o'clock meeting, I said. My voice was low, hard. He checked his computer. His eyes went wide. You are the investor, he stammered. I am the owner, I corrected him. He buzzed me through. I did not smile at him. I did not acknowledge him. He was just a pawn. I was here for the king. The elevator ride to the penthouse floor was silent. I watched the numbers tick up. 40, 45, 50. With every floor, I felt the weight of the last 3 years lifting off my shoulders. The weight of Nia's tears. The weight of my grandson's absence. The doors opened. A secretary in a tight skirt was waiting for me. She did not know who I was either. She just saw an old black man in an out-of-style suit. She frowned. Deliveries are in the back, she said. I am Thaddeus Cole, I said. I am here to see Derek. Her face changed. She looked at her clipboard. Oh, Mr. Cole. We were expecting a team. I am the team. She led me down a long hallway lined with modern art. We stopped at a set of double-glass doors. Inside, I could see them. Derek was sitting at the head of a massive conference table, flanked by 3 lawyers in expensive suits. They had blueprints spread out. They looked serious. They looked like generals planning a war. The secretary opened the door. Mr. Cole is here, she announced. Derek stood up. He put on his best smile, the smile he used for magazines. He adjusted his tie. He turned toward the door, ready to shake the hand of the savvy real estate mogul who had outsmarted him. Then he saw me. The smile did not just fade, it shattered. It fell off his face like glass hitting concrete. He froze. His hand was halfway extended, and it just hung there in the air, limp and ridiculous. Thad, he whispered. The lawyers looked at Derek, then at me, then back at Derek. They were confused. Derek, what is this? He snapped. His face went red, not with embarrassment, but with anger. What are you doing here, Thad? Derek demanded. His voice rose. I am in the middle of a critical meeting. I told you to stay away from my building. Did you follow someone in here? Security. He reached for the phone on the conference table. I walked into the room. I did not rush. I walked with the slow, heavy gait of a man inspecting a foundation. I pulled out the chair at the opposite end of the table. The leather creaked as I sat down. I placed my hat on the table. Sit down, Derek, I said. Derek slammed the phone down. Get out, he screamed. You are trespassing. I am waiting for the owner of the easement. I am waiting for a serious businessman, not a senile old man who wants to beg for money. One of the lawyers, a man with gray hair and a sharp nose, leaned over to Derek. Mr. Sterling, he whispered, the deed for Parcel 7B is registered to a Thaddeus Cole. Derek stopped breathing. He looked at the lawyer. He looked at me. He looked at the map on the table, where a red line was drawn right through his project. No, he said. No, that is impossible. He is a retired inspector. He has no money. I reached into my jacket pocket. I pulled out the original deed, the one signed by Commander Miller at the VFW. I slid it across the polished mahogany table. It spun slowly and stopped right in front of Derek. "Read it," I said. Derek picked up the paper. His hands were shaking. I watched his eyes scan the lines. I watched the realization sink in. He wasn't looking at a piece of paper. He was looking at a guillotine blade. "You," he whispered. "You bought the walkway. I bought the plumbing, Derek. I bought the only way out for your waste." The room was deadly silent. The lawyers were staring at me with a mix of horror and respect. They understood what I had done. I had checkmated their client with a piece of dirt worth $5,000. Derek dropped the paper. He sank into his chair. He ran a hand through his perfect hair, messing it up. He looked at me, and for the first time I saw fear, real fear. "Why?" he asked. "You know why." He swallowed hard. He looked at his lawyers. They nodded slightly, giving him the signal to proceed with the plan, the buyout. Derek took a deep breath. He forced a laugh. It sounded like a dry cough. "Okay, Thad, okay? You got me. Touché. That was a clever move. I underestimated you. I admit it." He leaned forward, trying to regain his dominance, trying to turn on the charm. "Look, I know things have been tense. I know you are upset about Nia. But business is business, right? You saw an opportunity and you took it. I respect that. I really do. So let's make a deal. You want to make a profit. I want to build my tower. Everyone wins." He pulled a checkbook out of his jacket pocket. He uncapped a gold pen. "You paid what, $5,000 for the land? I will give you $50,000. That is a 10 times return, Thad. You can fix up your house. You can buy a new truck. You can take a cruise." I sat there, stone still. I did not blink. Derek waited. The silence stretched. "Okay," he said quickly. 100,000, cash, today." I looked out the window at the city skyline. 200,000, Derek said. His voice was getting higher. "Thad, be reasonable. That is more money than you made in 10 years at the city. Think about your retirement. Think about Nia. She needs help. You can pay for a real doctor." I turned my gaze back to him. "She has a real doctor," I said, "and she is getting better every day. No thanks to you." 500,000, Derek shouted. He stood up. $500,000, Thad. Are you crazy? You were going to throw away $500,000 just to spite me. I stood up. I walked slowly to the other end of the table until I was standing right over him. I smelled his fear. It smelled like sweat and expensive cologne. Derek looked up at me. He was trembling. He wrote furiously on the check. He ripped it out of the book. $1 million, he said. He slammed the check on the table. It was a blue piece of paper with a lot of zeros. "There," he said, panting. 1 million. Take it. Take it and sign the transfer. You are a millionaire, Thad. You won. Now get out of my way." I looked at the check. It was a life-changing amount of money. It could buy a new house. It could send Marcus to college. It could ensure Nia never had to work again. But it was dirty money. It was money made from lies and fraud and the suffering of my daughter. I reached out and picked up the check. Derek let out a breath. He smiled. A weak, relieved smile. He thought he had won. He thought that in the end, everyone has a price. "Make sure you sign the back," he said. I looked him in the eye. I held the check up with both hands, and I tore it. The sound was loud in the quiet room. Rip! Derek's eyes bulged. His mouth fell open. I tore it again, and again, until it was just blue confetti. I let the pieces fall onto the table, onto his blueprints, onto his shaking hands. "I do not want your money, Derek," I said. My voice was calm, but it filled the room. "You are insane," he whispered. "I do not want your money," I repeated. "I want you to go home tonight and look in the mirror and realize that you are powerless. I want you to realize that an old black man with a bad knee just stopped your $50 million empire because you forgot to be a human being." I leaned down close to his face. "I want you to give back every single brick of dignity you stole from my daughter. And until you do that, not one drop of water flows through my land. Do you understand me?" Derek could not speak. He was gasping for air. I put my hat on. I looked at the lawyers. "Gentlemen," I said, "I suggest you advise your client to start looking for a new career, because this building is dead." I turned and walked out. I heard Derek screaming behind me. I heard the sound of glass breaking. He had probably thrown a vase. I did not look back. I walked through the lobby. The guard watched me pass. He looked terrified. I walked out into the street. The sun was shining. The air tasted sweet. I had just burned $1 million, and I had never felt richer in my life. Nia was waiting in the truck. She saw my face. "Did he offer you money?" she asked. "He did." "How much?" "Enough," I said. "Did you take it?" I started the engine. "Nia, look at that tower," I said, pointing to the steel skeleton. She looked. "It is just a pile of metal," I said. "It has no soul. And now it has no guts." I drove away. "We are not done yet," I told her. "He is wounded, and wounded animals are dangerous. He will try something illegal now. He will try violence." I patted the dashboard. "And we will be ready." There is a smell to desperation. It smells like ozone before a thunderstorm. It smells like cold sweat. In my 71 years, I have smelled it in the trenches of war, and I have smelled it in boardrooms when a company is about to go under. Derek Sterling was desperate. I had cut off his water. I had exposed his foundation. I had turned his wife against him. I had taken away his legal options. When you corner a rat, it does not negotiate. It bites. I knew Derek would not come himself. Men like him never get their hands dirty. They hire hands. They think that violence is just another service you can outsource, like dry cleaning or landscaping. But he forgot that I come from a world where violence is not a transaction. It is a language, and I speak it fluently. I sent Nia to the basement at 9 o'clock. We called it the bunker. It was actually just the old coal storage room, but I had reinforced the door with a steel plate and installed a deadbolt that could stop a battering ram. "Daddy, are they coming tonight?" she asked. She was holding Marcus's picture. "The wind is changing, Nia," I said. "I can feel it in my knee. Go downstairs. Lock the door. Do not open it unless you hear my voice or the police code." I turned off the lights in the house. A dark house looks vulnerable. It looks like a victim waiting to happen. That is exactly what I wanted them to see. But the darkness was a lie. Sitting in my kitchen drinking black coffee were 3 men. There was Big Mike, who served with me in the sandbox. There was Sal, a former heavyweight boxer, who now ran the local gym. And there was Tiny, who was 6'5" and used to be a military police officer. We were old. Our hair was gray. But we were the kind of old that is dangerous. We were the old that survived. We sat in the dark. We did not talk. We listened to the house settle. We listened to the crickets. At 2 in the morning, the crickets stopped. I saw the headlights cut through the front yard. A van. No plates. It idled at the curb for a moment. Then the lights went out. "Here we go," Big Mike whispered. He cracked his knuckles. It sounded like pistol shots. I checked the monitor on my tablet. I had installed micro cameras in the trees, in the mailbox, in the porch light. 4 men got out of the van. They were wearing hoodies and masks. They were carrying baseball bats and red gas cans. They were not coming to talk. They were coming to burn. My heart went cold. Burning a house is not a warning. It is an execution. Derek did not just want to scare us. He wanted to erase us. I watched them creep up the driveway. They moved sloppily. They were confident. They thought an old man and his daughter were easy pickings. "Hold," I whispered to the team. "Let them breach the perimeter." The first brick smashed through the living room window. The sound of shattering glass was deafening in the silence. One of the men shouted, "Come out, old man! Come out or we light this match!" He poured gasoline onto the porch steps. The smell of fumes filled the air. That was the signal. I hit the button on my remote. Floodlights exploded into life. 4,000 watts of halogen light mounted under the eaves turned the front yard into high noon. The thugs froze. They were blinded. They threw their hands up to shield their eyes. "Now," I said. The front door opened, but I did not walk out. Tiny and Big Mike walked out. They stepped onto the porch looking like giants in the harsh light. Tiny was holding a tire iron. Big Mike was holding nothing but his fists. Behind them, Sal walked out the back door, flanking them from the side. The thugs looked at the 3 massive men blocking their path. Then they looked at their baseball bats, which suddenly seemed very small. "Who are you?" one of the thugs stammered. "We are the neighborhood watch," Big Mike rumbled. "And you are trespassing." The leader of the thugs, the one with the gas can, panicked. "Get them," he screamed. He swung the gas can at Tiny. It was a mistake. Tiny caught the can in midair. He ripped it out of the man's hands like it was a toy. Then he backhanded the man across the face. The thug spun around and hit the ground hard. The other three tried to run, but Sal was behind them. It was not a fight. A fight implies two sides have a chance. This was a correction. Within 30 seconds, all four men were on the ground. They were zip-tied. They were groaning. Not one drop of gasoline had been lit. I walked out onto the porch. I was holding my phone. "Bring him here," I said, pointing to the leader. Big Mike dragged the man up the steps. He pulled the mask off. The thug was young, maybe 25. He was crying. "Please," he sobbed. "Please don't kill me. I was just paid to do a job." I held the phone up. I opened the live stream app. I had connected it to every local community page. I had tagged the local news stations. I saw the viewer count jump from 0 to 50 to 500 in seconds. People love a drama, especially at 2 in the morning. I turned the camera to face me. "Good morning, City of Detroit," I said. "My name is Thaddeus Cole. I am sorry to wake you up, but I have some guests I want you to meet." I turned the camera to the 4 men tied up on my lawn, surrounded by gas cans and baseball bats. "These men just tried to burn down my house," I said. "They tried to burn my daughter alive in her sleep." I walked over to the leader. I put the camera right in his face. The comments were scrolling by so fast they were a blur. People were tagging the police, tagging the mayor. "What is your name, son?" I asked. "Bobby," he whimpered. "Bobby Davis." "Who sent you, Bobby?" He hesitated. He looked at Big Mike, who cracked his knuckles again. "Who sent you?" I repeated. "And speak clearly. The whole city is listening." "A man," he cried. "A rich guy. He met us at the warehouse. He gave us $5,000 cash. He said he wanted you gone. He said you were ruining his life." "What was his name, Bobby?" "Sterling," the kid shouted. "Derek Sterling, the guy building the tower. He said burn the house. Make it look like an accident. Just get rid of the old man." I let the silence hang there. The name Derek Sterling echoed in the digital space. 5,000 people were watching now. I turned the camera back to me. "You heard him," I said. "Derek Sterling, the man who wants to build your future, just tried to burn down my past. He is not a businessman. He is a coward who hires children to do his dirty work." I looked directly into the lens. "Derek, I know you were watching. You tried to use fire, but you forgot one thing. I was forged in fire. You cannot burn what is already hardened." I heard sirens in the distance. The real police were coming. "I am waiting for the police," I said, "and when they get here, I will hand them this video. And tomorrow, when your investors see this, well, I hope you have a good lawyer." I ended the stream. The sirens got louder. Blue and red lights flashed against the trees. Big Mike looked at me. "You okay, Thad?" I looked at the gas can on the porch. A few more seconds, and my house would have been ash. My daughter would have been smoke. "I am not okay, Mike," I said, "but I am still standing." The police arrested the thugs. They took the gas cans into evidence. They took a copy of the video. The sergeant on duty shook my hand. He had seen the live stream. "We will pick him up, Mr. Cole," he said. "This is conspiracy to commit arson. Attempted murder. He won't be sleeping in his penthouse tonight." I went back inside. I unlocked the basement door. Nia came out. She was pale. She smelled the gasoline fumes on my clothes. "Is it over?" she asked. "The violence is over," I said. "The consequences are just beginning." I made us tea. We sat in the kitchen until the sun came up. At 8 o'clock the market opened. I checked the news. The video had gone viral. It had 2 million views. The hashtag Sterling Arson, was trending #1 in the country. Then came the financial news. The lead investor for the Sterling Heights project, a massive pension fund from New York, issued a press release. Due to recent allegations of criminal conduct and gross mismanagement, the fund is exercising its right to withdraw all capital from the Sterling Heights project effective immediately. We are also filing a lawsuit to recover initial investments. I refreshed the page. Another investor pulled out, then another. The bank froze his accounts. By noon, Derek Sterling was not just a developer with a stalled project. He was a financial leper. I watched the stock chart on my laptop. It was a straight line down. It looked like a falling building. Red. Everything was red. I took a sip of tea. You wanted to burn my house, Derek, I whispered. Now watch yours burn to the ground. My phone rang. It was Chloe. He is running, she said. He packed a bag. He is trying to get to the airport. He has an offshore account in the Caymans. He is not going to make it, I said. Why not? Because I just called my friend at the passport office. And I called the bond company that insures his project. They revoked his bond. He is a flight risk. I stood up. Nia, get dressed. Where are we going? She asked. We are going to the construction site, I said. Why? Because today is the day the red tag comes down, and the foreclosure sign goes up, and I want to be there when they lock the gate. Derek had played his final card. He had chosen violence, and by doing so, he had given me the moral high ground to bury him. I looked at the window where the brick had come through. I would have to fix that, but it was a small price to pay. The foundation of his life was gone. The walls were caving in, and now the roof was on fire. Let's go watch it fall, I said. There is a specific kind of silence that falls over a house when the money runs out. It is not a peaceful silence. It is a heavy, suffocating silence. It is the sound of servants being fired. It is the sound of cars being repossessed in the driveway. It is the sound of a phone that has stopped ringing because all the friends who used to drink your champagne have suddenly disappeared. I knew that silence was currently filling the penthouse of Derek Sterling. For the last 3 days, I had watched his world collapse from the outside. The construction site was dead. The investors had fled. The bank had locked the gates. But I knew that a man like Derek still had one card left to play. He had a stash. Every crook has a stash, a hidden account, a safety deposit box, something to fund his escape when the walls finally came down. I needed to find that stash. If he escaped to the Caymans, he could live like a king while Nia struggled to buy groceries. I could not let that happen. I needed to cut off his escape route. And the map to that route was currently sitting on a park bench in the most expensive district of the city, crying into a silk handkerchief. Chloe Sterling. I sat in my truck watching her. She looked nothing like the arrogant woman who had thrown wine at her husband a week ago. She looked small. She was wearing sunglasses big enough to cover half her face, but they could not hide the puffiness of her eyes. She was checking her phone every 10 seconds. She was waiting for a lifeline that was not coming. I checked my own phone. Ray, my private investigator, had done his job well. She tried to use the platinum card at Saks Fifth Avenue an hour ago, Ray texted. Declined. She tried the gold card. Declined. She called Derek. He sent her to voicemail. I put the phone away. I took a deep breath. I stepped out of the truck. I walked over to the bench. I did not sneak up on her. I wanted her to see me coming. I wanted her to see the man she had called a peasant. She looked up when my shadow fell over her. She flinched. She clutched her designer purse to her chest, as if I was going to snatch it. You, she hissed. Her voice was brittle. What do you want? Have you come to gloat? I sat down on the other end of the bench. I looked at the pigeons pecking at crumbs on the pavement. I do not have time to gloat, Chloe, I said. I am here to offer you a life raft. She laughed bitterly. A life raft. You were the one who sank the ship. You ruined everything. We were happy. We were rich. You were never rich, Chloe, I said. You were just next in line. I turned to look at her. Do you know what happens when the FBI investigates a Ponzi scheme? She stiffened. What are you talking about? Derek is not just broke, Chloe. He is a criminal. He has been moving money through shell companies for years. He has been defrauding investors. And do you know whose name is on the signature line for the interior design firm he uses to launder the money? She went pale. Her mouth opened slightly. I continued. It is a company called Lux Interiors, registered in your name 3 months after you got married. Did you sign a stack of papers he told you were just for insurance or tax benefits? Tears started to slide down her cheeks from under the sunglasses. She nodded. He told me it was a gift, she whispered. He said it was a company for my hobbies. I never designed anything. I just signed the checks he put in front of me. That is called being an accessory to federal fraud, I said. When the forensic accountants get here, and they will be here by tomorrow, they are not going to care that you didn't know. They are going to see your signature. They are going to see millions of dollars flowing through your account. And they are going to put you in a cell right next to him. Chloe took off her sunglasses. Her eyes were terrified. She looked at the high-rise buildings around us, as if they were prison bars. I do not want to go to jail, she sobbed. I am 26 years old. I just wanted a nice life. He promised me the world. He promised my daughter the world too, I said, and he left her under a bridge. I leaned closer. Derek is planning to run, Chloe. He has a bag packed. He has a flight booked. Is he taking you with him? She looked down at her hands. The diamond ring on her finger looked heavy. He told me to stay here, she said quietly. He said he needs to go scout a new location. He said he would send for me later. He is lying, I said. He is leaving you behind to take the fall. He is leaving you to answer the questions. He is leaving you to pay the debts. Chloe covered her face with her hands. She broke down completely. It was an ugly sound, the sound of a dream dying. I waited. I let her cry. I needed her broken. Then I spoke. I can help you. She looked up. How? I have friends in the district attorney's office. I can get you a deal, immunity, if you cooperate, if you give them everything. What do you want? She asked. I want the laptop, I said. Not the one he uses at the office, the one he keeps in the safe in the penthouse, the gray one, the one he never lets you touch. Chloe's eyes widened. How do you know about that? I know everything, Chloe. She wiped her face. She looked at me with a mix of fear and calculation. She was a survivor. Survivors do not have loyalty. They have instincts. If I get you the laptop, she said, will you promise me I won't go to prison? I promise. I will hand the evidence directly to the authorities with a statement that you volunteered it. You will be a witness, not a defendant. But you have to do it now, before he comes back. She stood up. She smoothed her skirt. Her face changed. The sadness was gone, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. He is at the lawyer's office, she said. I have an hour. Go, I said. I waited in the park. An hour passed. Then an hour and a half. I started to worry. Had he caught her? Had she changed her mind? Then my phone buzzed. It was a location pin, a coffee shop 3 blocks away. I walked there fast. Chloe was sitting in the back corner. She had a large tote bag on the floor. She looked nervous, shaking her leg under the table. I sat down. Did you get it? I asked. She slid the bag over to me with her foot. It is in there, she whispered, and the password is on a sticky note. He is so arrogant he kept the password under the keyboard. She stood up. I am leaving town, she said. I have an aunt in Ohio. I am going there until this blows over. That is a good idea, I said. She paused. She looked at me. You are a scary man, Thaddeus Cole, she said. I am a father, I replied. That is scarier. She walked out. I never saw her again. I took the bag and went to my truck. I drove to a quiet spot by the river. I needed to see what I had bought. I opened the laptop. It was a high-end machine, encrypted, secure. I typed in the password Chloe had given me, Titan01. The screen unlocked. I did not see games. I did not see photos. I saw spreadsheets, hundreds of them. I started clicking. What I found made my blood run cold. Derek was not just cheating on his taxes. He was running a massive money laundering operation. I saw transfers from shell companies in Eastern Europe. I saw invoices for materials that were never bought. I saw payments to consultants that matched the names of city officials. But the worst part was the ledger for the Sterling Heights Tower. I opened the file marked Material Costs. Derek had charged the investors $50 million for high-grade steel beams. But the invoices showed he had purchased reclaimed steel from a salvage yard in China for $5 million. He had charged for fire-resistant insulation. He had installed standard foam that would go up like a torch in a fire. He had charged for deep pile foundations. The logs showed he had stopped digging at 20 feet instead of 50. He wasn't building a skyscraper. He was building a tomb. If that building had been finished, if people had moved in, the first strong wind, the first small fire, it would have been a catastrophe. Hundreds of people would have died. I sat there by the river, staring at the screen. I felt sick. This was not just greed. This was evil. This was a man who looked at human lives and saw numbers on a spreadsheet. I took out a flash drive. I copied everything. Then I called Arthur Henderson. Arthur, I said, do not go home tonight. I am coming to your office. And call the FBI. You found something, Thaddeus? Arthur asked. I found the smoking gun, Arthur, and it is pointed right at Derek's head. I drove to Arthur's office. I handed him the drive. We spent the night going through the files. Arthur's face got paler and paler with every page we turned. "Thaddeus," he said at 3 a.m, "this is RICO. This is racketeering. This is 20 years minimum." I looked out the window at the sleeping city. "Make it 30, I said. The next morning, the sun rose over a city that was about to change. Derek Sterling woke up thinking he just had a bad week. He did not know that his wife was in Ohio. He did not know that his laptop was in the hands of the FBI. He did not know that Thaddeus Cole, the old man he had pushed down the stairs, had just signed his death warrant. I went home. Naya was awake making breakfast for Marcus, who she hoped to see soon. "Did you get it?" she asked. I sat down at the table. I looked at my hands. They were old hands, rough hands, but they were clean hands. "I got him, Naya," I said. "He is done." She put a plate of eggs in front of me. "Eat, Daddy," she said. "You need your strength. The final act is coming." She was right. The evidence was the bullet, but I still had to pull the trigger, and I wanted to do it in person. I wanted to look him in the eye when the handcuffs went on. I ate my breakfast. It tasted like justice. Derek Sterling was a builder of lies, and today, the demolition crew had arrived. There is a specific kind of madness that takes over a man when he knows the end is coming. Instead of packing his bags or making his peace with God, he decides to paint the sinking ship gold. He decides that if he screams loud enough and smiles bright enough, the water will stop rising. Derek Sterling was that man. He had lost his wife. He had lost his secret accounts. He had lost the trust of the banks. But he still had his ego, and his ego told him that he could pull off one last magic trick. The invitation arrived at my house by courier. It was printed on heavy cardstock with gold-embossed lettering. It invited Thaddeus Cole and guest to the topping-off ceremony of the Sterling Heights Tower. A topping-off ceremony is a tradition in my trade. It happens when the last steel beam is placed at the highest point of the building. It is a moment of pride. It is a signal to the city that the skeleton is complete and the structure is sound. But Derek's building was not complete. It was a half-finished carcass of steel rusting in the rain. The work had been stopped for weeks. The red tag was still flapping on the fence. I held the invitation in my rough hands, and I understood exactly what he was doing. It is called a pump and dump. He was going to stage a fake ceremony. He was going to hire actors to wear hard hats. He was going to hoist a beam into the air for the cameras. He was going to announce that he had secured new funding. He was going to claim that the environmental issues were resolved. He wanted to drive the stock price up for 1 hour. Just long enough to sell his remaining shares, just long enough to steal a few more $1 million from unsuspecting investors before he hopped on a plane to a non-extradition country. He invited me because he wanted to humiliate me. He wanted to show me that I could not stop him. He wanted to parade his power in front of the mayor and the press, hoping that their presence would force me to back down. He thought I would be too ashamed to show my face among the elite. He thought I was just a dirty old man who lived in a small brick house. He forgot that I know how to read a blueprint, and I could see the cracks in his plan from a mile away. I walked into the living room. Nia was standing by the window. She was watching the news. On the screen, Derek was giving an interview. He was standing in front of the construction site. He had covered the rusty fence with blue tarps. He had rented shiny new cranes that were just parked there for show. "These rumors of financial trouble are ridiculous," Derek said to the reporter. He flashed his famous smile, but I could see the sweat on his upper lip. "We are fully funded. The city has cleared us to proceed. Tomorrow, we celebrate the future of Detroit." Nia turned off the TV. "He is lying," she said. Her voice was calm. "He is desperate," I replied. "He is trying to create a reality that does not exist. He thinks if he gets the mayor to shake his hand, the police won't put handcuffs on him." Nia looked at the invitation on the table. "He invited us," she said. "He thinks we won't come," I said. "He thinks we are afraid. He thinks we are broken." I looked at my daughter. It had been weeks since I found her under that bridge. The bruises had faded. The hollow look in her cheeks was gone. She had spent hours with the therapist. She had spent hours with me in the basement going over the evidence. She had listened to the recordings of his abuse. She had read the files from his laptop. She was no longer the victim. She was the witness. And she was the executioner. I picked up the phone and called Arthur Henderson. "Arthur," I said, "is the package ready?" "It is ready, Thaddeus," Arthur said. "The FBI has the hard drive. The district attorney has Chloe's statement. but they want to wait until tomorrow. Why? Because if he goes through with this ceremony, if he solicits investment money while knowing the project is dead, he commits federal securities fraud in real time. They want to catch him in the act. They want the cameras rolling when he lies. Perfect, I said. Arthur hesitated. Thaddeus, are you sure you want to be there? It could get ugly. He has security. I looked at Naya. We will be there, Arthur. We have front row seats. I hung up. Naya, I said, go get dressed. We have some shopping to do. We drove to the upscale mall on the north side. The kind of place where the doormen wear top hats and the air smells like lavender. I had not been here in 20 years. We walked into a boutique that sold Italian suits. The saleswoman looked at my work boots and my flannel shirt. She started to walk over, probably to tell us we were in the wrong store. Then she saw Naya. Naya was walking with her head high. She walked like she owned the ground beneath her feet. I need a suit, Naya said. White, stark white. The saleswoman paused. White is a bold choice. I am making a bold statement, Naya replied. I sat in the waiting chair while Naya went into the fitting room. I closed my eyes and listened to the soft jazz music. I thought about the first time I held Nia in the hospital. She was so small, so fragile. I promised her mother that I would protect her from the world. I had failed. I had let a wolf into the sheepfold because the wolf wore a nice suit and spoke politely. I had let Derek Sterling take my daughter because I thought he could give her a life I couldn't. But I was not failing today. Today I was giving her the weapon she needed to kill the wolf. The curtain opened. I opened my eyes. Nia was standing on the podium. She was wearing a tailored white pantsuit. It was sharp. It was architectural. The jacket fit her shoulders perfectly, making her look powerful. The pants were crisp. She looked like an angel of vengeance. She looked like a CEO. She looked at herself in the mirror. She did not smile. She just nodded. This is it, she said. We bought the suit. I bought a new tie, a red one, the color of a stop sign, the color of a red tag. We drove home in silence. The sun was setting over the city, casting long shadows. The skyline was beautiful, but I knew the rot that hid behind the glass. That night, the house was quiet, but it was not the fearful silence of before. It was the focused silence of a war room. I sat at the kitchen table polishing my boots. I polished them until they shone like black mirrors. Nia came in. She had her hair pulled back tight. She was holding the flash drive. Daddy, she asked, what if he doesn't let us in? I pointed to the invitation. He invited us, Nia. He wants an audience. He wants to look at you and see the fear in your eyes. He wants to look at me and see defeat. He needs that validation. And what will he see? She asked. I stopped polishing. I looked at her. He will see the owners of the land he stands on. I went to the safe. I took out the deed to parcel 7B. I folded it carefully and put it in my inside jacket pocket. It sat right next to my heart. Then I took out the soil report, the one with the red stamp. Condemned. I put that in the other pocket. I checked my phone. I had a text from Big Mike. The boys are ready, Thad. We will be in the crowd. Civilian clothes, just in case his security gets rough. I texted back. Stand down unless I give the signal. We are doing this by the book. I did not want a brawl. I wanted a dissection. I went to the window. I could see the glow of the construction lights from the downtown district. Derek was burning electricity all night trying to make the site look active. He was burning money he didn't have. I thought about Chloe running to Ohio. I thought about the investors losing their pensions. I thought about the workers who would lose their jobs when the company collapsed. It was a tragedy. A man's greed is a bomb that blows up everything around it. But tomorrow, we would cut the wire. Nia sat down across from me. She reached out and took my hand. Her hand was warm and strong. Thank you, Daddy, she whispered. For saving me. I squeezed her hand. You saved yourself, Nia. I just gave you the shovel. You dug yourself out. We went to bed early, but I did not sleep. I lay in the dark listening to the wind. I rehearsed the moment in my head. I visualized walking up those steps. I visualized the look on his face. I visualized the fall. At 6 in the morning, my alarm went off. I got up. I showered. I shaved closely. I put on my best shirt. I tied the red tie. I put on my suit. I walked into the hallway. Nia was coming out of her room. The white suit glowed in the morning light. She had put on lipstick, a deep crimson that matched my tie. She looked dangerous. She looked beautiful. She held up the invitation. "Ready?" she asked. I put on my hat. I adjusted the brim. I checked my pockets. Deed, soil report, flash drive. I checked my soul. No anger, just cold, hard purpose. "Derek Sterling wants a show," I said. "He wants a spectacle." I opened the front door. The morning air was crisp. The city was waking up. Let's go give him a finale he will never forget. I walked to the truck. I opened the door for Nia. She climbed in not like a passenger, but like a partner. I started the engine. The old Ford rumbled to life. "Today is a good day for a demolition," I said. Nia smiled. A sharp, terrifying smile. "Today is a good day for the truth," she replied. I put the truck in gear. We drove toward the city, toward the tower, toward the man who thought he was a god. "Tomorrow, we go to a party," I said, "and we are bringing the wrecking ball." A topping-off ceremony is supposed to be a celebration of engineering. It is the moment when the final steel beam is hoisted into place, signifying that the skeleton of the building is complete and the structure is sound. It is usually a day of pride for the ironworkers and the architects and the men who poured the concrete with their own hands. But as I stood at the edge of the crowd, watching Derek Sterling prance around a stage draped in blue velvet, I knew this was not a celebration. It was a funeral, and he was the only one who did not know he was already dead. The construction site had been transformed into a movie set. Derek had spent money he did not have to cover the rust and the mud. There were white tents serving champagne. There was a string quartet playing Mozart to drown out the hum of the diesel generators. There were spotlights sweeping the sky, trying to make a half-finished hazard look like a monument to success. I looked at the crowd. It was a sea of expensive suits and forced smiles. The mayor was there, looking uncomfortable, checking his watch every 30 seconds. The press was there, hungry for a story. And the investors, the few who hadn't pulled out yet, were there, looking nervous, clutching their drinks like life preservers. And then there was us. I stood next to Nia. In her white tailored suit, she looked like a blade of light cutting through the gloom. She was not trembling. She was not looking down. Her eyes were locked on the stage where her husband was adjusting the microphone. "Ready?" I asked her. She nodded once, a sharp, precise movement. "Let's go take back our name," she said. We began to walk. We did not sneak in the back. We walked right down the center aisle. My work boots hit the temporary wooden flooring with a heavy, rhythmic thud that seemed to sync with the beating of my heart. Thud, thud, thud. On stage, Derek was launching into his speech. He looked manic. His eyes were wide and bright, too bright. He was sweating despite the cool evening air. "Ladies and gentlemen," Derek boomed his voice, echoing through the massive speakers. "They told me I could not build here. They told me the ground was too soft. They told me the vision was too big for this city. But I am a man who does not believe in the word impossible. I look at this skyline and I see the future. I see a legacy that will stand for 100 years. I kept walking. Heads started to turn. People whispered. They recognized me from the viral video. They recognized Nia from the society pages. Derek saw us. He faltered. He missed a beat in his speech. He gripped the podium so hard his knuckles turned white. But he kept talking faster now, louder, trying to drown out my presence with noise. "This building is more than steel," Derek shouted, his voice cracking slightly. "It is a symbol of family. It is a symbol of trust." He signaled to the security guards. Two massive men in black suits who were standing at the foot of the stairs. They saw us coming. They stepped into the aisle blocking our path. Their arms were crossed. Their faces were stone. I did not stop. I did not slow down. "Sir," one of the guards said, stepping forward, "this is a private event. You need to leave." I looked past him. Standing in the shadows near the VIP tent was a man in a dress uniform with gold stars on his shoulders. Chief of Police Marcus Miller. We had served in the same platoon 40 years ago. We had pulled each other out of mud that was deeper and darker than this. I caught his eye. I gave a small nod. Chief Miller stepped out of the shadows. He walked over to the guards. He did not shout. He did not make a scene. He just put a hand on the guard's shoulder. "Stand down, son," the chief said. The guard looked confused. "But chief, these people are—" I said, "Stand down," the chief repeated, his voice low and dangerous. "Let them pass. That is an order." The guard looked at the chief, then at me. He saw something in our eyes that scared him more than losing his job. He stepped aside. The path to the stage was clear. Derek stopped talking. The string quartet stopped playing. The silence that fell over the crowd was heavy. It was the silence of a held breath. I walked up the stairs first. My bad knee ached, but I stood tall. Nia followed me. Her heels clicked on the wooden steps like pistol shots. We walked to the center of the stage. Derek backed away as if we were radioactive. He looked at the crowd, trying to find a friendly face, trying to find someone who would save him. But nobody moved. They were frozen by the spectacle. "What are you doing?" Derek hissed away from the microphone. "Get off my stage. You are ruining everything." I did not answer him. I walked over to the laptop that was controlling the massive LED screen behind the stage. The screen that was currently displaying a rotating 3D model of the tower. I took the flash drive out of my pocket, the one containing the files from Chloe, the one containing the recordings. I plugged it in. Nia walked to the podium. She reached out and took the microphone from the stand. Derek tried to grab it, but I stepped between them. I was 71 years old, but in that moment I was a wall of concrete. "Do not touch her, Derek," I said. Nia looked out at the crowd. She looked at the cameras, which were now zooming in, broadcasting this moment live to the entire city. "My name is Nia Cole," she said. Her voice was clear and steady. It did not waver. "And I am the wife of this man." A murmur went through the crowd. Derek tried to laugh. It was a desperate, high-pitched sound. "Folks, my wife is not well. She has been under a lot of stress. Please forgive this interruption. We will get her some help." Nia ignored him. She turned to look at him. "You talk about legacy, Derek," she said. "You talk about family. You talk about trust." She turned back to the crowd. "But you cannot build a legacy on a lie, and you cannot build a future on a foundation of fraud." She pointed to the screen behind her. "Watch," she said. I hit the enter key on the laptop. The beautiful 3D rendering of the tower vanished. The screen went black for a second. Then a video appeared. It was grainy. It was taken from a security camera inside Derek's office. It showed Derek sitting at his desk holding a glass of scotch, laughing with a man I recognized as a crooked city official. The audio boomed through the speakers loud and clear. "Do not worry about the soil report," Derek's voice on the screen said. "I paid the inspector. Nobody is going to dig that deep. Who cares if the ground is toxic? By the time anyone finds out, I will have sold the units and be living in Europe." The crowd gasped. The mayor stood up, his face pale. Derek lunged for the laptop. "Turn it off," he screamed. "Turn it off!" I shoved him back. He stumbled and fell onto the blue carpet. The video changed. Now it was a spreadsheet. Rows and rows of numbers highlighted in red. "Material fraud," the screen read. "Steel grade substitution. Fire safety bypass." Nia spoke over the murmuring crowd. "He bought cheap steel," she said. "He bought flammable insulation. He turned this building into a fire trap to save $2 million so he could buy a yacht." "Lies." Derek screamed from the floor. "She is crazy. Those are fake." Then the screen went black again, and the sound changed. It was not a video this time. It was a phone call, the recording Nia had made. "You listen to me, you bitch," Derek's voice snarled through the speakers. It was hateful, violent. "I will bury you. I will tell Marcus his mother is dead. I will tell him she died in a gutter." The crowd was deadly silent now, the kind of silence that happens when a monster is unmasked. Nia looked down at Derek, who was curled on the floor, trying to cover his ears, trying to hide from his own voice. "You took my house," Nia said softly into the microphone. "You took my money. You tried to take my dignity. But you forgot one thing, Derek." She looked at me. I nodded. "You forgot that I am a coal, and we do not crumble." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a piece of paper, the deed to the easement. "And you forgot to check who owns the land you are standing on." She held the paper up for the cameras. "My father owns the easement," she said. "He owns the pipes. He owns the water. And as of this morning, he has filed an injunction to permanently block any utility connection to this site." She dropped the paper on top of Derek. It fluttered down and landed on his chest. "This building is dead," she said, "and so is your lie." The screen behind us flashed one last image. It was a photo of Derek and his mistress Jessica kissing on a boat paid for with investor money. That was the final nail. The investors were shouting now. The reporters were shouting questions. The flashes were blinding. Derek looked up. He looked at the mayor who was turning his back. He looked at the investors who were pulling out their phones to call their lawyers. He looked at the police chief who was slowly walking up the stairs with a pair of handcuffs on his belt. I walked over to the microphone. "I am Thaddeus Cole," I said. My voice was rough, like gravel. "And I used to inspect buildings in this city. I know a structural failure when I see one." I looked down at Derek. "This structure is condemned." I took Naya's arm. "We are done here," I said. We walked down the stairs. The crowd parted for us. They did not whisper this time. They watched us with awe. Behind us, the chaos was erupting. I heard Derek screaming. I heard the chief reading him his rights. "Derek Sterling, you are under arrest for securities fraud, racketeering, and domestic abuse." I did not look back. I did not need to see the handcuffs go on. I had seen enough. We walked out of the tent and into the cool night air. The stars were shining above the rusting skeleton of the tower. It was over. The nightmare was over. Naya took a deep breath. She looked at the moon. "Did we win, Daddy?" she asked. I looked at her, standing tall in her white suit, strong, unbroken. "Yes, baby girl," I said. "We won." But the war wasn't just about destroying him. It was about rebuilding us. And as I looked at the flashing lights of the police cars reflecting in her eyes, I knew the foundation was solid again. "Let's go get Marcus," I said. And we walked into the darkness, leaving the ruins of Derek Sterling's life behind us. You might think that exposing a criminal on a giant screen is the end of the fight. You might think that shame is enough to stop a man like Derek Sterling. But shame is an emotion for people with a conscience. Derek did not have a conscience. He had an addiction to winning. Even as the images of his betrayal faded from the screen and the echo of his cruel voice died down, he was still trying to calculate a way out. He was looking at the investors, trying to see if he could spin this. He was looking at the mayor, trying to see if he could call in a favor. But you cannot spin gravity, and you cannot negotiate with a bulldozer. I stood on that stage with my daughter, and I watched the final wall of his defense crumble. It did not come from the police. It did not come from the press. It came from the money. A man in a charcoal gray suit walked up the stairs. He moved with the silence of a funeral director. I recognized him. He was the senior risk officer from the lead bank, the man who held the keys to the vault. He walked past the security guards who were too stunned to stop him. He walked past Nia. He walked right up to Derek, who was scrambling to his feet, wiping dust from his tuxedo. "Mr. Vance." Derek stammered, breathless. "Mr. Vance, listen to me. That video is a deep fake. It is AI generated. These people are blackmailing me. The project is solid. We are fully funded." Mr. Vance did not blink. He held a leather portfolio in his hand. He opened it and pulled out a single sheet of paper. "Mr. Sterling," the banker said. His voice was not loud, but it carried through the microphone that was still live. It was the cold, flat voice of institutional power. "As of 5 minutes ago, the sovereign bank has invoked the fraud clause in your lending agreement. We have received digital evidence from the FBI confirming the falsification of assets and the misappropriation of construction funds." Derek went pale. "But Mr. Vance," the banker continued, cutting him off. "We have frozen all accounts associated with Sterling Enterprises. We have frozen your personal accounts. We have frozen the offshore trusts. We have seized the construction bond." He handed the paper to Derek. "This is a notice of immediate foreclosure. This site is now the property of the bank. You are trespassing on our land." The crowd gasped. It was a collective sound of shock. The King of Detroit had just been evicted from his own castle in front of the entire city. Derek crumpled the paper. "You cannot do this," he screamed. "I have rights. This is a $50 million asset. You cannot just take it." "It is not a $50 million asset," the banker said calmly. "It is a liability, and we are cutting our losses." Derek looked around wildly. He looked at the investors. They were turning their backs, walking away, dialing their phones. He looked at the mayor, who was already in his limousine, speeding away from the scandal. He looked at me. His eyes were red. His hair was wild. He looked like a cornered rat. "You did this," he hissed at me. "You old ruin. You think you won. You think the bank taking over matters. I will sue them. I will find new investors. I will sell the building to the Chinese. I will sell it to the Saudis. Someone will buy it. The structure is up. The steel is there." He pointed a shaking finger at the tower. "That building is worth millions," he shouted. It is 50 stories of prime real estate. You cannot destroy that. I stepped forward. I took the microphone from the stand. I held it close to my mouth. You are right, Derek, I said. The steel is there. The glass is there. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the deed, the piece of paper that Naya had dropped on him earlier. I picked it up from the floor. But a building is not just steel, I said. A building is a living thing. It needs to breathe, it needs to drink, and it needs to flush. I turned to the crowd. I turned to the cameras. My name is Thaddeus Cole, and I am the owner of Parcel 7B, the strip of land that connects this site to the city sewer main. I looked at the banker. Mr. Vance, I said, you might own the mortgage, but you do not own the plumbing. I held up the deed. As the legal owner of the easement, I am hereby revoking all utility privileges. I am capping the pipe. Tonight. I looked back at Derek. That means no water comes in, and no waste goes out. I paused, letting the reality sink in. Without a sewage connection, you cannot get a certificate of occupancy. Without a certificate, you cannot open the doors. You cannot rent a single apartment. You cannot sell a single condo. I pointed at the looming tower. That is not a $50 million asset, Derek. That is the world's largest paperweight. It is a tomb of steel and concrete that will never house a single human being. It is worthless. The silence that followed was absolute. Derek stared at me. He looked at the building. He looked at the banker who was nodding slowly in agreement. It is true, the banker said. Without the easement, the building is a total loss. We will have to tear it down for scrap. Tear it down. Those words broke something inside Derek. The last cable holding his sanity together snapped. He let out a scream that did not sound human. It was a primal roar of rage and defeat. No, he screamed. No, you cannot take it. It is mine. He lunged. He did not look like a CEO anymore. He looked like a murderer. He flew across the stage, his hands reaching for my throat. I saw him coming. I saw the madness in his eyes. I did not move. I did not flinch. I stood my ground just like I had stood my ground against the wind and the rain and the fires of my life. But before he could touch me, a blur of blue motion intercepted him. It was the chief of police and 2 officers. They hit him hard. They tackled him to the ground right at my feet. Derek fought. He kicked. He bit. He was screaming obscenities, cursing me, cursing Nia, cursing the world. Get off me, he yelled. Do you know who I am? I am Derek Sterling. Click. The sound of handcuffs locking is distinctive. It is a sharp, final sound. It cuts through the noise. Derek kept screaming as they pulled him up. His tuxedo was torn. His lip was bleeding. He lost a shoe in the struggle. Chief Miller held him by the arm. He looked at me. You okay, Thad? The chief asked. I adjusted my tie. I looked at the man who had tried to destroy my family. I am fine, Marcus, I said, just taking out the trash. The officers dragged Derek toward the stairs. The cameras were flashing blindingly fast, capturing every second of his humiliation. He passed Nia. She was standing still, her white suit glowing in the spotlights. Derek looked at her. Nia, he pleaded. Nia, tell them. Tell them it is a mistake. I am your husband. I am the father of your child. Nia looked at him. She did not look angry. She looked indifferent. My husband died a long time ago, she said. You were just a stranger who stole his name. They dragged him away. As they reached the bottom of the stairs, the crowd parted. But they did not part out of respect. They parted to let someone through. A woman was standing there. She was wearing a trench coat and dark glasses. She was flanked by 2 federal agents. It was Chloe. She had come back, not to help him but to watch him fall. She had made her deal. She had turned witness, and now she was here to see the show. Derek saw her. Chloe, he shouted. Chloe, help me. Call the lawyer. Tell them about the offshore accounts. We can pay them. Chloe took off her sunglasses. She looked tired, but she looked free. There is no money, Derek, she said. Her voice was cold. I gave the passwords to the FBI. I gave them the ledger. I gave them everything. Derek's eyes bulged. You traitor. Chloe smiled. It was a small, sad smile. You taught me well, darling, she said. You always said look out for number 1. She turned to a man standing next to her, a young, handsome man in a sharp suit. He put his arm around her protectively. "Let's go," the man said. "This is over." Chloe nodded. She looked at Derek one last time. "Goodbye, Derek. Enjoy prison. I hear orange is the new black," she laughed. A harsh, bitter laugh that echoed in the night air. Then she turned and walked away, arm in arm with her new man, leaving Derek screaming impotently as he was shoved into the back of a police cruiser. I stood on the stage and watched the red taillights of the police car fade into the city traffic. The site was quiet now. The music had stopped. The investors were gone. The party was over. The only thing left was the half-finished tower, rising into the darkness, a monument to greed that would never be finished. I felt a hand on my arm. It was Naya. She was crying. But they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of release, the kind of tears that wash away the dirt after a long storm. "It is done," she whispered. I looked at the deed in my hand. I folded it up and put it back in my pocket, next to my heart. "Yes," I said, "it is done." I looked out at the city, my city. It was full of cracks. It was full of broken things. But tonight, we had fixed one small part of it. We had poured a new foundation, not of concrete, but of justice. "Let's go home, Naya," I said. We walked down the stairs. The security guards nodded at us with respect as we passed. We walked past the empty champagne glasses and the discarded brochures. We walked to my old truck. I started the engine. It rumbled to life, a steady, reliable sound. As we drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror one last time. The lights of the construction site were turning off one by one. The tower was disappearing into the shadows. Derek Sterling was gone. His legacy was dust. But the Cole family was still standing, and tomorrow we had a lot of work to do. We had a grandson to bring home, and we had a garden to plant. Because the best revenge is not destroying your enemy. It is living a good life on the ground they tried to steal from you. I turned on the radio. Al Green was playing. "Let's Stay Together." I hummed along as we drove into the night. The inspection was passed. The structure was sound. And for the first time in a long time, I was ready to rest. They say that prison is a great equalizer. I do not believe that. I believe prison is a microscope. It strips away the suits and the watches and the titles, and it shows you exactly what a man is made of. Some men are made of iron. They rust, but they do not break. Some men are made of stone. They just get harder. And some men, like Derek Sterling, are made of cheap drywall. They look solid when they are painted and dry, but the moment you expose them to the damp, dark reality of a cage, they turn to mush. I walked through the metal detector at the county jail. I did not beep. I had left my watch and my keys and my phone in the locker. The only thing I brought with me was a piece of paper folded in my pocket and the satisfaction that had been keeping me warm for the last 3 weeks. The air inside the visitation center smelled of industrial cleaner and stale sweat. It was a smell I remembered from my army days. It is the smell of men living in close quarters without hope. It was a long way from the lavender-scented air of the Sterling Heights lobby. I sat down on the metal stool. It was bolted to the floor. Everything in here was bolted down. The phone was heavy black plastic. The glass partition was 2 inches thick, scratched by diamond rings and keys of desperate wives who had sat here before me. I waited. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Then the heavy steel door on the other side buzzed. I watched him walk in. If I had passed him on the street, I would not have recognized him. The Derek Sterling I knew was a man who spent 2 hours a day in the gym and $300 on a haircut. The man shuffling toward the chair was a ghost. His head was shaved, probably because of lice. His skin, which used to be tan from weekends on the yacht, was the color of old paste. He had lost 20 pounds. His orange jumpsuit hung off his frame like a tent. He walked with his shoulders hunched, his eyes darting around the room as if he expected someone to jump him. He sat down. He did not look at me. He looked at his hands, which were clasped together on the stainless steel shelf. They were shaking, not a little tremble, a violent, uncontrollable shake. He picked up the phone. He held it to his ear with both hands. I picked up mine. "Hello, Derek," I said. He flinched at the sound of my name. He looked up slowly. His eyes were bloodshot, rimmed with dark circles. There was no arrogance left in them, no spark, just fear, raw, naked fear. "Thad," he whispered. His voice was raspy. "Thad, you came." "I came," I said. "Thank God, thank God." Derek leaned forward, pressing his forehead against the glass. "Thad, you have to get me out of here. You have to help me. I cannot stay here. You do not know what it is like. I looked around the room. I know exactly what it is like, Derek. It is a cage, and you built it yourself. No, you do not understand. They know who I am, Thad, the other inmates. They know I had money. They think I still have it. They threaten me every night. I have not slept in 3 days. I have to pay for protection, but my accounts are frozen. He started to cry. Big, ugly tears that ran down his face and dripped onto his orange collar. I am begging you, Thad. Please. I know we have had our differences. I know I made mistakes. But I am family. I am Marcus's father. You cannot let the father of your grandson die in here. I sat there and watched him cry. I felt nothing. No pity, no anger. Just a cold, clinical observation. This was the man who had thrown my daughter out on the street. This was the man who had laughed when she begged for help. Naya is doing well, I said. Derek stopped crying for a second. He wiped his nose on his sleeve. Naya. Yes, Naya. Tell her I am sorry. Tell her I love her. Tell her I will make it up to her. Thad, listen to me. I have money. I raised an eyebrow. I thought the FBI took everything. Not everything, Derek whispered, looking around to make sure the guards were not listening. I have a crypto wallet, cold storage. The feds missed it. There is $2 million in there. Thad, if you post my bail, I will give you the key. I will give it all to Naya. Just get me out on house arrest, please. He was still trying to deal. He was still trying to buy his way out. He truly believed that money was the only language the world spoke. I leaned in close to the glass. There is no bail, Derek. The judge denied it. You are a flight risk. I can get a new lawyer, Derek said, his voice rising in panic. I just need capital. Thad, you sold the easement rights back to the city, didn't you? You must have made a fortune. Use that money. Loan it to me. I will pay you back double, triple. I let out a short, dry laugh. It echoed in the small booth. I did not sell the easement, Derek. I donated it. It is a public park now. A very small, very narrow park named after my wife, Beatrice. Derek stared at me. His mouth hung open. You gave it away. I gave it to the people, I said. Derek slumped back in his chair. He looked defeated. He looked like a balloon that had lost all its air. Why did you come here, Thad? He asked. If you are not going to help me, why did you come? To laugh at me. To see me in this suit. No, I said. I came to talk business. Business? Derek laughed bitterly. I have no business. I have no company. I have no home. I am bankrupt, Thad. Chapter 7. The bank took it all. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the folded piece of paper. I unfolded it and pressed it against the glass so he could read it. It was a document from a debt collection agency. Do you know what happens when a bank forecloses on a massive fraud case? I asked. Derek squinted at the paper. They write off the loss, I explained. They want the toxic asset off their books, so they sell the debt. They sell the right to collect on the personal guarantees you signed. They sell it for pennies on the dollar to anyone willing to buy it. I tapped the glass. The sovereign bank auctioned off your personal debt last week, Derek. $20 million in personal guarantees that were not covered by the seized assets. Derek looked at me. Confusion clouded his eyes. So some collection agency owns me, he said. So what? I have no money. You cannot get blood from a stone. I did not let the collection agency buy it, I said. I bought it. Derek froze. I used my savings. I used the money from my pension. I used every dime I had stashed away for 30 years. I bought your debt, Derek. I bought the paper that says you owe $20 million. I paused. I am your creditor, Derek. I am the owner of your life. Derek shook his head slowly. That doesn't matter. I am going to prison. I will be here for years. You will never get paid. I know, I said. And that is the beauty of it. I leaned forward again. My voice dropped to a whisper, a hard, jagged whisper. The district attorney offered you a plea deal this morning. 10 years. With good behavior, you might be out in 6. Derek nodded. He knew the deal. 6 years is not a long time, Derek. You are young. You will get out when you are 46. You will still have half your life ahead of you. You probably think you can start over. You think you can find another girl, another scam, another way to climb back up. I smiled. It was not a nice smile. But you won't. Because the day you walk out of this prison, I will be waiting, and I will have this piece of paper. I pointed to the document. Civil judgments for fraud do not disappear in bankruptcy, Derek. This debt sticks to you like tar. It accumulates interest, statutory interest, 6% a year. I did the math for him. In 10 years, you will owe me $30 million. Derek's face went gray. Every paycheck you earn for the rest of your life, I will garnish it. Every car you try to buy, I will put a lien on it. Every house you try to rent, I will destroy your credit score so fast you won't be able to rent a bicycle. I folded the paper and put it back in my pocket. You are going to work for me, Derek, for the rest of your natural life. You are going to flip burgers or dig ditches or scrub toilets, and every Friday, I am going to take 50% of your money, and I am going to give it to Nia and Marcus. Derek looked at me with horror. He realized finally that this was not about revenge. This was about ownership. I had turned him into an indentured servant. You are a monster, he whispered. I stood up. No, Derek. I am a builder, and I just built a wall around your future that you can never climb over. I looked at him one last time. He looked small, pathetic. He was no longer the wolf. He was just a dog on a very short leash. Enjoy your time inside, I said. Read some books. Learn a trade. You are going to need it. I turned to leave. Thad, Derek screamed. Thad, wait. We can work something out. Thad, don't leave me like this. He started banging on the glass. The sound was dull and heavy. Thud, thud, thud. Guard, he screamed. Guard, call him back. I did not turn around. I walked toward the heavy steel door. I signaled the guard. He hit the button. The door buzzed. It slid open with a grinding sound of metal on metal. I stepped out into the hallway. Behind me, I heard Derek screaming my name one last time. It was a scream of absolute despair. Then the door slid shut. Clang. The sound echoed down the concrete corridor. It was the sound of a book closing. It was the sound of a vault locking. I walked out into the sunshine. The air tasted sweet. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs. I had spent my whole life inspecting foundations, making sure things were safe for other people. Today I had finally secured the foundation of my own family. The debt was paid. The books were balanced. I walked to my truck where Nia was waiting. She looked at me. She didn't ask what happened. She saw the peace in my eyes. Is it done? She asked. I started the engine. He is safe, she said, meaning Marcus. He is safe, I said, and he will never have to worry about money again. His father is going to work very hard for him. I drove away from the prison. I did not look back. There was nothing there but the past, and I was driving straight into the future. There is a specific feeling you get when you sweep a job site clean at the end of a long project. It is not happiness exactly. It is satisfaction. It is the knowledge that the dust has settled and the debris has been hauled away, and what is left standing is true. For months, the city speculated about what I would do with the Sterling Heights site. The financial sharks circled the water. They called my lawyer Arthur Henderson every day. They offered millions for the land. They offered to partner with me to finish the tower. They told me that if I just authorized the plumbing connection, I could be one of the richest men in Detroit. They appealed to my greed because they assumed that underneath my rough exterior, I was just like them. They did not understand that I was not looking for profit. I was looking for a purge. I stood on the sidewalk next to Nia and Marcus. My grandson was holding my hand. He was 5 years old, and he did not understand why his father was gone or why we were living in Grandpa's small house. He just knew that his mother smiled again. He just knew that he was safe. We were wearing hard hats, not for show, but for safety. "Daddy, are you sure about this?" Nia asked. She had to shout over the sound of the sirens clearing the perimeter. I looked at the rusting steel skeleton of Derek's tower. It loomed over the neighborhood like a broken tooth. It was a monument to arrogance. It was built on poisoned soil, with stolen money and cheap steel. You cannot fix a building like that. You cannot renovate a lie. You have to erase it. "I am sure," I said. I picked up the radio. "All clear on the south perimeter?" I asked. "All clear, Mr. Cole," the demolition foreman replied. I looked down at Marcus. "Do you want to help Grandpa push the button, son?" Marcus's eyes went wide. "Really?" I guided his small hand to the plunger. "On 3, I said. 1, 2, 3. We pushed it down. For a second there was silence. Then a series of dull thuds echoed from the base of the tower. Pop, pop, pop. The steel groaned. It was a sound like a dying beast. Then slowly, gracefully, the 50-story structure began to fold in on itself. It did not fall sideways. It imploded. It collapsed straight down into its own footprint, disappearing into a massive cloud of white dust. The ground shook under our feet. Marcus squealed with delight. When the dust cleared, the skyline was open again. The shadow that had been cast over the neighborhood was gone. The sun hit the pavement where the tower used to stand. "It is done," Nia whispered. "No," I said, putting a hand on her shoulder. "The teardown is done. Now the building begins." Over the next year, I did not rest. I went back to work, but not as an inspector, as a developer. I took the money I had saved. I took the settlement money from the bank, who was eager to avoid a lawsuit over their negligence, and I built something new. We did not build a glass tower. We built a 3-story brick complex, solid, wide, welcoming. We used grade A steel. We remediated the soil properly, digging down 40 feet to remove every ounce of the toxins ChemCorp had left behind. We poured a foundation that could withstand an earthquake. We built 70 units of affordable housing for veterans and single mothers. We built a library on the ground floor. We built a playground with soft rubber matting where kids could run without getting hurt. And above the front door, we chiseled a name into the granite archway: the Beatrice Cole Community Center. On the day of the opening, I watched Nia cut the ribbon. She was not wearing the white power suit she wore to destroy Derek. She was wearing a simple blue dress that made her look like her mother. She was the executive director. She had an office on the first floor with a window that looked out onto the playground where Marcus played with the other kids. She gave a speech. She did not talk about revenge. She did not talk about the past. She talked about stability. She talked about how everyone deserves a place where the roof doesn't leak and the walls don't shake. I stood in the back of the crowd. I saw Arthur Henderson wiping a tear from his eye. I saw Chief Miller nodding in approval. A reporter approached me, a young woman with a microphone. "Mr. Cole," she asked, "you could have made $50 million. Instead, you built low-income housing. Do you have any regrets?" I looked at Nia laughing with a tenant who had just moved in. I looked at Marcus hanging upside down from the monkey bars. I looked at the reporter. "Young lady," I said, "there are 2 ways to build a legacy. You can build it high, so people have to look up at you, or you can build it wide, so you can hold people up." I chose the second one. I walked away before she could ask another question. I did not need the publicity. I just needed the peace. That evening we went home. My house was exactly the same as it had always been. I had not bought a mansion. I had not bought a new car. I still drove the old Ford truck. The kitchen smelled of cornbread and collard greens. It was the smell of my childhood, the smell of my marriage, the smell of safety. We sat at the small round table, me, Nia, Marcus. There were no servants. There was no crystal glassware. There was just us and a pot of stew. Marcus was telling us a story about a bug he found in the garden. He was talking fast, waving his fork around. He was happy. The shadow of Derek Sterling had passed over him, but it had not touched him. He would grow up knowing his father was away, but he would never know the cruelty. Nia was listening to him, her chin resting on her hand. She looked tired, but it was a good tired. The tired that comes from a day of honest work, Grandpa Marcus said. "Can we build a fort tomorrow?" "We can build anything you want, son," I said, "as long as we draw the blueprints first." Nia reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Thank you, Daddy," she said softly. "For what?" "For catching me." I looked at her. "That is what foundations are for, Nia, to hold the house up when the storm comes." We finished dinner. We washed the dishes together. It was a simple domestic rhythm. Wash, rinse, dry. It was boring to some people. To me, it was a symphony. At 9 o'clock, I tucked Marcus into bed. I read him a story about a train that could not stop. He fell asleep before the last page. I walked down the hall. I said goodnight to Nia. She was sitting in the living room reading a proposal for a community garden. I walked to the front door. Old habits die hard. I checked the deadbolt. Click. Solid. I checked the window latches. Locked. I went to my study and checked the monitors. The cameras were working. The perimeter was secure. Derek was in prison. He would be there for a long time. The debt I held over him ensured that even if he got out, he would never have the resources to hurt us again. But I knew that the world was full of Derek Sterlings. There were always wolves looking for an open door. There were always men who thought they could take what wasn't theirs. I was 72 years old now. My knee hurt more than it used to. My hands were getting stiffer in the mornings. But as I looked at the green light on the security panel, I knew I wasn't done. I went to the closet and pulled out my old baseball bat, the one I kept by the door, just in case. I turned off the porch light. The house was dark. It was quiet. It was safe. I walked to my bedroom. I looked at the picture of Beatrice on my nightstand. "We did good, Bea," I whispered. We held the line. I lay down in my bed. For the first time in years, I did not dream of falling buildings. I dreamed of a garden where the roots went deep and the walls were strong, and nothing could ever hurt us again. I am Thaddeus Cole. I am a father. I am a grandfather. And I am the man who inspects the foundation. And tonight, everything is up to code. In the construction trade, we have a term called curing. It is the process where concrete dries and hardens over time. It does not happen overnight. You pour the wet mix, and it looks solid. But inside there are chemical reactions happening. Heat is being released. Bonds are forming. If you rush it, the concrete cracks. If you let it sit, it becomes stone. It becomes something that can hold up the weight of the world. For the last year, I have watched my family cure. I sat on my front porch polishing my boots, the same boots I wore to the demolition site. The leather was scuffed and the soles were worn down, but the stitching held. That is the difference between quality and flash. Derek Sterling was a pair of patent leather shoes, shiny until they hit the first puddle. I am work boots. I am ugly, but I last. I looked at the newspaper on the table. There was a small article on page 6. Former developer sentenced to 12 years. The article mentioned the fraud. It mentioned the fake soil reports. It mentioned the investors who lost millions. It did not mention the easement. It did not mention the old man who bought a sidewalk to stop a skyscraper. That was fine by me. I do not need my name in the paper. I need my name on the deed. Derek was in a cell in a federal facility 3 hours north. I heard he was working in the laundry. I heard he was paying off his debts to the other inmates with cigarettes because his bank accounts were empty. Every month, my lawyer Arthur Henderson sends a garnishment order to the prison commissary. We take 50% of the 12 cents an hour Derek makes folding sheets. It amounts to about $3 a month. I put that $3 into a savings account for Marcus. It is not about the money. It is about the principle. It is a reminder that every action has a cost, and Derek is going to be paying his bill until the day he dies. The phone rang inside the house. I did not jump. I did not run. I walked inside and picked it up. It was Nia. She was at the center. "Daddy," she said. "The city inspector just left." I felt a small tightening in my chest. Inspectors can be trouble, even the honest ones. "What did he say, Nia?" "He said we passed. He said the renovation of the community center is the most solid work he has seen in 20 years. He asked who the contractor was." "What did you tell him?" "I told him it was Cole and Son, even though the son is only 5 years old." I let out a breath. "Good," I said. "Keep the paperwork filed. Do not let the permits expire." "I will, Daddy. Are you coming for dinner?" "I will be there at 6. I hung up. I looked around my living room. It was quiet. The ghosts were gone. For a long time, this house felt like a bunker. It felt like I was under siege, waiting for the next attack, waiting for the next lawsuit, waiting for the firebomb. Now it just felt like a house. The walls were straight, the roof was tight, the foundation was settled. I walked down the hall to my study. I opened the safe. Inside was the deed to Parcel 7B, the piece of dirt that saved us. I did not frame it. I did not hang it on the wall. I kept it locked away. You do not brag about your weapons. You keep them oiled and ready in case the wolves come back. And the wolves always come back. Maybe not Derek. Maybe not today. But there is always another developer who thinks he can cut corners. There is always another man who thinks he can take what is not his. I am 72 years old. My hands shake a little in the mornings. My knee clicks when it rains. But my eyes are clear. I still know where the property lines are. I still know how to read a survey. As long as I am drawing breath, nobody crosses the line into this family without my permission. I went to the basement. Marcus was there. He was sitting at my old drafting table. His legs were too short to reach the floor, so he was swinging them back and forth. He was holding a pencil with both hands, trying to draw a straight line on a piece of scrap paper. I stood there for a moment watching him. He looked like his father. He had Derek's nose and Derek's smile. For a while, that terrified me. I was afraid that the corruption was genetic. I was afraid that the rot was in his blood. But then I watched him erase a mistake and try again. I watched him focus. Derek never erased. Derek just covered his mistakes with paint and lies. Marcus was trying to get it right. I walked over to the table. Grandpa Marcus said, "My tower keeps falling down." He pointed to a stack of blocks on the floor. I sat down on the stool next to him. I picked up one of the blocks. "Why do you think it is falling, Marcus?" "I do not know. I made it really tall." I swept the blocks aside. I took a fresh piece of graph paper. I sharpened my pencil with the small knife I kept in my pocket. The smell of cedar shavings filled the air. "Look here, son," I said. I drew a horizontal line at the bottom of the page. I pressed down hard, making the graphite dig into the paper. "This is the most important line, Marcus. Do you know what it is?" "The ground," he asked. "It is the bedrock," I said. "It is the truth. Before you build anything, before you put up a single wall, you have to know what is under your feet. If this line is crooked, everything else will be crooked. If this line is weak, everything else will fall." I drew a square on top of the line. This is the foundation. It has to be wider than the house. It has to be deep. It has to carry the load. "What is the load, Grandpa?" "The load is life, Marcus. It is the snow on the roof. It is the wind pushing against the walls. It is the mistakes you make. It is the people you have to carry. A man has to carry a lot of weight in his life. If his foundation is just ego, if it is just money, he will crack. He will crumble, just like your blocks." I looked at him. He was listening. His eyes were wide. "Your father," I said quietly. "He built a very tall tower, but he built it on sand. He wanted people to see him from far away. He forgot that the higher you go, the harder the wind blows." I drew another line, thick and straight. "We do not build for height, Marcus. We build for strength. We build so that when the storm comes, and the storm always comes, we are the only ones left standing." I handed him the pencil. "Now you draw the line, and do not lift your hand until it is straight." Marcus took the pencil. He bit his lip in concentration. He drew a line. It was wobbly. "Erase it," I said. "Do it again." He erased it. He drew it again. "Better." "Again," I said. He drew it a third time. It was straight. It was solid. "Good," I said. "Now we can build." We spent the afternoon drawing. We did not draw castles. We did not draw spaceships. We drew floor plans. We drew load-bearing walls. We drew drainage systems. I taught him about tensile strength. I taught him that steel bends but concrete breaks. I taught him that the most important parts of a building are the parts nobody ever sees. This is my legacy. I do not have millions of dollars to leave him. I do not have a yacht. I do not have a penthouse in the sky. I have a code. A code is like a building permit. It tells you what you can and cannot do. It tells you that you do not lie about the materials. It tells you that you do not cover up a crack. You fix it. It tells you that you protect your own. Nia came down the stairs. She was wearing her work clothes. She had sawdust in her hair. She looked beautiful. She looked like a coal. "Dinner is ready," she said. I looked at the drawing on the table. It was a simple house. 4 walls, a roof, a strong foundation. "It is a good design, Marcus," I said. He smiled. "It is for us, Grandpa." I patted his head. I stood up. My knees protested, but I stood straight. I rolled up the drawing and tucked it into the rack next to the blueprints of the city I had spent 40 years inspecting. I walked up the stairs following my daughter and my grandson. The house smelled of food. The lights were on. The locks were secure. I am Thaddeus Cole. I am a builder, and my work is done. Some men build skyscrapers to touch the clouds, believing height equals power. They forget that the higher you build on a lie, the harder you fall when the truth shakes the ground. I didn't defeat Derek with violence. I defeated him with the very rules he thought he was above. A real man doesn't need a penthouse to stand tall. He provides safety. He demands respect. And when the wolves come for his blood, he doesn't just lock the door. He owns the forest. Protect your own. Honor your foundations. And never underestimate an old man who knows where the property lines are buried. If you enjoyed this story of justice and liked seeing a corrupt man get exactly what he deserved, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps me share more stories like this one. And tell me in the comments below, have you ever had to stand your ground against someone who thought they had more power than you? I read every comment. Until next time, keep your foundation strong.